Let's see if we can't get them on right now. Let's bring Dick on and Constance. Hello, Dick and Constance.
Hey, Rick.
Well, there you are. We finally got the link out to you. Yeah, I guess Joe got the link. I don't know how he got it. You guys didn't, but sometimes these things happen. Let's bring
That's
Joe
okay.
on. Hello, Joe.
Good.
How you doing?
There he is. So anyways, we're getting a lot of buzz. People are really excited about tonight's program. There's a lot of trouble with marriages in the Watchtower. We all know that. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, whenever we talk about marriages made in Brooklyn, as we would call it, we always get a lot of people coming in. So you're going to have a big audience tonight. And plus, talking about that murder, that was something else. So we're looking forward to that because people don't believe, the Watchtower has this terrible image. They don't see all of this. When I was a witness, I didn't see it, but I'm glad you guys can expose it tonight. So I'm going to bow out of here, let you guys take it away. I'll be here if you need me.
Okay, sounds
You're
good,
right.
Rick. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Connie and Dick Show. We're absolutely thrilled to have you. And we have our great friend Joe, and he's going to be chiming in from time to time and had a lot of experience being an elder for 14 to 15 years. He's got a lot of insight. Rick mentioned on the preview that they're baptizing people that are very, very young. And you have to get baptized to be a credible baptism. You have to have accurate knowledge. Well, accurate knowledge for me in 1972, when I got baptized, accurate knowledge was Armageddon's coming in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
The Watchtower has been exposed through 6 screens and a lot of the great platforms on YouTube to be liars, flip-floppers, deceivers, deceitful. Anyone that's been baptized, years ago, decades ago, has noticed how incredibly corrupt they are. So I would say if you've been disfellowshipped, your baptism was not a proper baptism because the knowledge that they told you was lies. You got baptized into lies. I got baptized into Jehovah's Witnesses because I didn't want to die at Armageddon was coming in 1975. I was such a wonderful guy and wanted to save the world. I'd like to drink. I like to smoke marijuana. I like to have sex with any female that I could get my hands on. That's who I was. But my sister convinced me that Armageddon was going to come. And if I didn't change my ways, I was definitely going to die at Armageddon, which was coming in the fall of 1975. I just wanted to, it's off topic from what me and Connie are going to be talking about throughout the evening, but I just wanted to throw that out there because it just hit me so strongly when Rick was talking about the previews for the shows tonight. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, and what me and Connie have been working on for a while, is the marriages in the Watchtower, the divorces in the Watchtower, and dating in the Watchtower, and what's it like. Are Jehovah's Witness marriages, were they conceived in heaven? Were they all being blessed? Does the restrictions that are put on dating couples, does that make sense? So what's the inside story? Well, Joe's been an elder. Connie's done a lot of research on this. I've heard the stories over the years, but this is your program. This is for you to call in. We're going to do some points, some talking points, but we want you all to chime in. As you know, *6. So I'll let my beautiful wife take it over.
Thank you, Rich. Well, how it all started is I was reading Reddit. I don't generally go on Reddit very often, but I had some notifications and so were brought up about Reddit. And so I took a look at him. I said, oh my, Rich, this is going to be a really good topic. It's a hot topic and people are talking about it on Reddit. But, it applies to everyone. It applies to single people. It applies to married people. It applies to people who are separated, people who are thinking of getting a divorce, people who are divorced. I mean, it covers the full spectrum. So anyway, what I really wanted to start off is the dating and then the marriage. This might be a 2-part, 3-part series tonight. But anyway, we might not be able to cover everything tonight, but about dating in Watchtower, about getting married in Watchtower, what the requirements are, what you're looking for. We're going to touch on some heavy subjects, even with regards to domestic violence and define that. Rape in the marriage as well. I'll define what that is. And then, even people leaving the organization as far as getting a divorce. And then our very dear friend Joe has an incredible true story that he is going to share with you. And like Rich said, Joe was in the organization because we have a new audience. So if you've heard this, that's okay. We do have a lot of new people we'd like to share this with. Joe had been in the organization for 49 years and an elder for 12, 13 years. So his background and his experience is impeccable. So during this whole thing, he will bring that up about a murder in a marriage of Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so first of all, with regards to, well, maybe let's start about the dating, and then I can get into what comments were on Reddit. About the dating situation among Jehovah's Witnesses. First of all, I have to preface this. I was a single sister in the organization when I was in for 12 years. And hands down, there are more single sisters, than there are eligible bachelors. And that's a real disadvantage for the sisters because you only can marry in the truth and you cannot be unevenly yoked. So the sisters have a real disadvantage to begin with. So, anyway, and the dating situation, we know there are people listening who were never JWs here. Witnesses have a tendency to get married very young, which I don't agree with, especially teenage weddings. I don't agree with that, never have. And anyway, we had quite a few sisters that got married as young as 17, all the way up to, well, the oldest sister was 25. She thought if she wasn't married by the time she was 25.
Yeah, she was an old maid.
That's what she thought. She thought she was going to be an old maid. So anyway, marriage is something that's really, really important. I mean, if you're a godly person, you want to marry someone that you're very compatible with, someone who has the same beliefs, but really you are married for life. And that takes time to get to know that person. You can't just know somebody in a few months. In the world, outside of JW system, most people, when they date for about a year or 2 years before they make a commitment as far as getting married. Watchtower is very, very different. So
yeah, you when you're dating someone and you're in your early 20s and you're dating somebody in the congregation or another congregation, they would really expect you to have a chaperone because they're not going to trust you. And they really push going out with someone for 2 or 3 months. Listen, if you've dated her for 2 or 3 months, you can't be doing that because 1, you might have sex. 2, the second reason would be that if you break it off, that there'd be hurt feelings. Well, I've had hurt feelings before, and I suppose I've hurt a few feelings before, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Relationships don't always work out. You might like somebody, you might date them for a while, and then, well, gee, I don't see life the way she does or he does, and yeah, it just it's not going to work. So you try to be gracious and say, I hope you find somebody that
that you're compatible with.
Yeah,
I wish you the very best.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the mature thing to do. Sometimes, Rich, people marry just to have their parents' approval.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes there's pressure among their parents, and their parents in this country, we don't have prearranged marriages. India and other countries, they do. But the thing is that, you know, it's almost sometimes a cultural thing among JWs that if you have a lot of pressure, say your father's an elder, your mother's an elderette, and they have someone in mind that maybe as a single sister and the daughter to that family, you know, you might be a little bit interested, but you're not really with that brother, you know, and you're young, right? You're not your own authentic person yet because you're so young, you don't even know who you are. You know, a lot of times you'll go along with, okay, mom and dad know what's best for me,
That's right.
right? And there's that pressure. There's that pressure like, oh, I got to please mom and dad. I'm still under their roof and
Mhm.
they know what's best for me. And that's not the best situation because when you marry, let me tell you, I've always said this. I have always said this. The two biggest decisions any woman can ever make in her life is number one, what you're going to do for a career. If you're going to work, okay, most women work. So what's your career going to be? Number two is if you're going to get married, the second question is if you're going to get married. And if you are going to get married, which many women do, okay, what kind of man is he? You know, what kind of person are you looking for? And first of all, do you really know yourself pretty well? You got to know yourself pretty darn well because when the two of you get married, you're one person according to God's law. So, you know, what you do for a career and who you marry are the two biggest decisions. And then if you marry, then the third one is, are we going to have children? Those are the three big, gigantic questions that every woman and man have to ask themselves. That's really, really important. Because if you rush into things, it's not going to end up happy. And we do know a lot of JWs. I mean, you go on Reddit, okay, you don't even have to take my word. Go on Reddit, look at the forum, type in Reddit, Jehovah's Witnesses marriages or Jehovah's Witnesses divorce, anything along that line. And you will hear people's comments. And I actually have some of them right here. And boy, some of these are really, really sad stories.
Yeah, they certainly are.
And they're true stories. They're true stories.
You know, when you're a young JW or even an older one, but let's go with the young JWs. You got your hormones, you know, your libido is in overdrive. If you've been in the Watchtower for a long time or 18 years or 19 years, you have so many watchtowers on sex and so forth.
Born and raised, you're talking about?
Yeah,
Rich?
born and raised. And they're always talking about sex.
Oh, always.
So,
Always.
you know, and you know, you can't, as a JW, you know, experiment around because you'll be disfellowship or something like that. But you don't get to know the spouse because they want you married. If you're courting, they'd like you to be married, to be married in at least 6 months of courting. Like, hey, you know, if you're feeling with her emotions or his emotions, you better get married because the big fear is they're going to have sex.
Right,
They might do petting or something like that.
Right.
Oh my God, you know, disfellowshipping.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, how do you really get to know somebody? You're dating them, okay? You pick her up at the house, and then you have to go and pick up the two chaperones, usually another married couple, in the back seat. But you really can't get to know somebody. You're always thinking about, well, what are they thinking about in the back seat? You know, are they going to report something I said to the elders? Am I going to say something off color and be in the back room?
Yeah.
Am I going to have everything I do with this woman
On a tape recorder.
scrutinized? You know, really. It's very, very difficult. And another thing is that when you're going to find a prospective mate, you have to do vetting. You're going to spend, if you're in your early 20s, you know, you could be this woman for 60 years.
Right.
You know, 60 years, right?
Very true.
You got to really, really know who she is. Now, for the women, a lot of times it's like, well, he's a ministerial servant. He's been appointed by Holy Spirit. Well, I can tell you this: everybody knows my life story. I've told it so many times. Holy Spirit does not appoint elders, ministerial servants, circuit overseers, and certainly not the governing body.
Mm.
I've always said that there is a spirit that does promote these people to these positions or install these people in these positions.
Mhm.
And that spirit comes from Satan and the devil, because these governing body members are all very proficient liars. They lie to you all the time. They distort, they deceive. They're horrible people. And I firmly believe that every single one of them has a demon living inside of them.
Mm.
That's my opinion. I can't prove it, but it's the fruit of the poison tree.
Mhm.
Look what they do.
Yeah, look at the
Look
fruit.
what they say.
Right.
So many sisters will, well, he's a ministerial servant, or maybe he's a 35-year-old elder. Oh, he's an elder.
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you something.
Mm.
You don't have to be well educated to be an elder. There's no courses that you take. What you have to do is turn in a lot of time
There's
slips.
no background screening.
No
either, right?
background screening.
That's really important.
You don't know. And you think, oh, I'm in the truth and he's in the truth. So everything that comes out of his mouth will be the truth. Well, does everything that comes out of the mouth of the governing body, is that the truth? Absolutely not. If you look on YouTube tonight,
Mm.
you got, what's his name?
Stephen Lett? Or
No, the other clown. Sorry.
the Australian one? Jackson?
Jeffrey Jackson.
Mhm.
And he's saying that you will be protected at Armageddon.
Mm.
Then you got that little milk toast guy there,
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Jeffrey Weiner.
Jeffrey Weiner, right?
Yeah.
He's given
With the black
he's given a
eyebrows.
talk and said, it isn't guaranteed that Jehovah is going to protect you at Armageddon. And this other clown is saying it's absolute guaranteed you will be protected.
Mm.
And they're giving these talks within a year of each other.
Mhm. Mhm.
Come on,
Yeah.
they change so many things.
Yes, they do.
Very soon, they're going to be changing. All right, you can celebrate, birthdays for sure. They'll be celebrating birthdays. It'll be a matter of conscience. It's going to be a matter of conscience if you went Mother's Day or Father's Day. It could be a matter of conscience. They're loosening up all the rules. You can have beards. They're just changing everything. So why would you trust a person just because he had a position
Mm.
as elder, a servant, or he's a pioneer?
Mhm.
I mean, you can be a pioneer for 2 months and quit.
Well, you don't really, the organization really emphasizes that with the brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
especially, the sisters. Many of them are looking for a brother to marry. I wish they had more identity of their own. I'm all about that. Find out who you are as a person and develop yourself really well. There's nothing wrong with being single and really be authentic in who you are and grow in your own personal growth before you get married. The Watchtower does not encourage that. They don't encourage a college education. They don't encourage the military, so the JWs are quite limited. And so anyway, what I wanted to say is for the sisters, they're always encouraging the sisters, look for a brother who's reaching out for responsibilities in the
Mhm.
congregation,
Mhm.
right? That means, ministerial servant,
Yeah.
an elder or whatever. Okay. So the point I'd like to make is, okay, so look beyond that, what type of person is this brother or the sister? What are their qualities? Not just the physical. I'm not just talking about the physical. I'm talking about really what's inside their heart.
Mhm.
Are they a real genuine person? Are they very respectful of you? Are they respectful of your family? Are they honest? Are they honest, or do they live a double life? You'd be surprised how many live double lives.
Yeah, a lot
You'd be
going
surprised.
along with that.
Uh-huh.
Connie's thought about double life.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, a lot of JWs,
Yeah.
that have a gambling problem, have a drinking problem, have a porn
Anger.
problem,
Anger.
problems,
Anger issues.
They may look nice and polished at the Kingdom Hall,
Yeah.
but at home, it's a completely different
Yeah,
story.
they're a firecracker.
Yeah.
And if you're ever, as a woman or a man, if you're ever married to somebody like that, because there are stories of ex-JWs who were raised in the organization. Their father was an elder. The mother was an elderette. They were just like the perfect JW family in the whole congregation. And then the father, when he got home, he beat the living daylights out of the kids.
Mhm.
And that's what they went through. And yet everybody in the congregation loved brother so-and-so.
Yeah,
He looked like the most, theocratic elder. Everybody loved him. But when he got home, he was a tyrant. He was a tyrant with his kids, tyrant with the wife and everybody. He was very abusive.
you can have a young brother who's ugly and stupid and sees this beautiful, attractive sister. Well, I can't bring her in. I can't reel her in on my own. So what do? I
Mm,
go out in service.
mm.
I knock on doors for a year or two, and I get promoted to a ministerial servant. Now I've got,
I have some status.
I got some status.
Right. I'm somebody important.
So he says to the 19, 20-year-old sister, hey, let's go out for coffee. Well, he's a ministerial servant. He's spiritual. It doesn't matter that he's dumb and ugly. In a new system, he's going to be handsome and bright.
Mm.
I'll marry him because I have a libido. It's cooking, and my hormones are raging. Why not?
But that's the depth of their relationship. I mean, that's
That's
sort
it.
of superficial, Rich,
Anybody
That,
can be.
that kind of relationship won't last.
Of course it won't. If it lasts, it's only held together because if they get a divorce, they probably won't make it through Armageddon, or the elders will, jump all over them if they get a divorce.
Mm.
It's the only grounds, as we know, as JWs,
Mhm,
is adultery.
mhm,
But then again, it depends on the elders in your congregation,
mhm.
because some elders, my sister was told, if he's my former brother-in-law.
Tell the story about that, Rich,
Okay.
for the new audience.
Yeah.
They don't know.
My former brother-in-law was a wonderful guy, truly was a great, hardworking, smart, good-looking guy.
Loved his family.
Loved his family.
Great provider.
He studied with Jehovah's Witnesses,
Mhm.
and they got married because he was not baptized. They had to get married at another place, but
Not in the Kingdom Hall.
not in the Kingdom Hall, but an elder married them.
And he
So
was
when it's-
studying. He was
and
studying.
he was
but
studying.
Not baptized.
But he
Okay.
just told me he just couldn't make the commitment to the Watchtower
To get baptized.
to get baptized.
He had some questions and concerns.
So after 20-something years, they have marital problems.
Okay, so they're married
Mhm.
20 years and they have 3 kids.
Right.
Okay.
So she goes to the elders and well, she wasn't all that forthright. They had agreed that when the youngest child graduated from high school, they would divorce.
Mhm.
But my sister wanted to have a biblical or scriptural divorce,
Mhm.
and that wasn't in the cards at that time.
Right.
So she wanted to.
She wanted out of the marriage.
She wanted out of the marriage.
But she didn't know how to go about it because there was no adultery.
That's right. So she goes to the elders, and she said, he won't let me go to the Kingdom Hall. Now, when you just hear it that way, you go,
Mhm.
"Oh, what a bad guy he was." No, that wasn't the situation. He was a maintenance chief in a factory. It was a 6-day-a-week job. And if something broke down, you just didn't go home.
So he was on call as well.
He was on call, and he worked long hours. He made really, really good money. They
Mhm.
live in a beautiful home, swimming pools, nice cars, all the trappings, and she certainly enjoyed those.
Now, she had a bachelor's degree, his sister,
Yeah.
but she never used it. She never worked. She stayed home
Yeah.
and she took care of the kids.
They had 3 kids.
They had 3 kids. She had the luxury of staying home and he worked his fanny off for all 5 of them.
So
Mhm.
he's saying to her, "Look, I got one day off,
Right.
and that's Sunday.
Right.
I want to take the kids to the beach or the mountains or a park or something.
Family day.
I want to spend it,
Right.
and I can't do it. I can spend the whole day at the Kingdom Hall. I have the 2 meetings. That's 2 hours, and then out in field service, and the kids have to have associated with other kids their age." And he's like, "Oh,
What about her family
yeah,
life?
yeah." So
Mhm.
she went. She said,
So can I interrupt
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
for a minute?
Yeah.
So like Rich said, he had studied, so he was very familiar with the witnesses, but he never got baptized. He had concerns, but he never got baptized, but they did get married. So he was a great provider. There was no problem. There was no cheating in the marriage. He allowed her to go to all the meetings, going out in field service, even to bring the kids and raise them as JWs.
Mhm.
The only thing is it was Sunday and it was his only day off and he wanted to have time with his family. Okay.
So he complained to me, about this Jehovah Witness stuff in all the meetings. I said, well, I don't go to all the assemblies, but I have my former wife tape them. And I'd take the tape recorder in, and I was a electronics technician, and I had a big bench, and while I was repairing TV sets or circuit boards, I would play the assembly,
Right.
and I would sometimes play it 2 or 3 times.
Right.
So I had the knowledge, but I wasn't there.
Right. You couldn't go, especially on a Saturday, because you had overtime.
Yeah, that's it. If it wasn't for that Saturday overtime, I wouldn't have been able to make it
Right. Financially.
because I had 2 kids and my wife didn't work. And
Right.
so she used to record it. And I would listen to it sometimes 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I had more knowledge of that assembly than even the elders had.
Right.
Because they had to work and couldn't be listening to it. So I said to him, well,
To Jimmy, your brother-in-law.
yeah, to do that, to tell her to tape it, tape the
Tell your
meetings,
sister to tape it.
And Jimmy mentioned it to her, and she goes, the scriptures say, do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together. So I have to physically be there. I can't have a friend of mine tape it for me. So no matter how Jimmy spun it, she had a scripture to knock him down.
Right. And so the point is that she was not going to have family day with the kids with him.
Yeah.
She was going to the Kingdom Hall. Right.
Yep.
And the kids were going to the Kingdom Hall. So how did it all end up, Rich? What
Divorce.
happened? So what'd she say to the elders to get out of that marriage without adultery?
Well, yeah, she said, the elder said to her, well, if he's inhibiting you from serving Jehovah, you can divorce him. So they called that a scriptural divorce. That is not in the Bible.
No, it's not.
Not in the Bible, and Joe, when he comes on, he'll tell you that elders take great liberties. If they like you, you can do anything.
They all have their own set of rules, don't they, Rich?
They do.
Based on the congregation.
If you're an elder and you commit adultery and you confess it to the elders, and yes, well, how long ago was it? And you say 5 years ago. Who knows about it? Well, nobody knows about it. Well, you just keep it quiet.
Because they're all about image.
It's all about image.
Right.
But I go in there and I confess to adultery. You're disfellowshipped. Yeah.
So back to your sister now. So the elders gave her that loophole.
Yeah.
It wasn't adultery. Gave her the loophole that, well, if he's preventing you from going to the Kingdom Hall, he wasn't preventing her from going to the Kingdom Hall on Sunday. She twisted that because she wanted out. She wanted out of the marriage.
Yeah.
So the elders got right in the middle of their marriage and she got a divorce. She was able, with the elders' approval, to divorce him.
And she married another Jehovah's Witness. They live in Florida now, but that's how they do things in the Watchtower.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's the dating part. That's the marriage part. The other thing I would like to just say, are we finished with that before we move on?
I just want to emphasize, you need to spend, if you're going to spend 80 years or 60 years with someone, you've got to really, really know them.
You know them really well.
Yeah, very, very
You
well.
gotta love them very deeply
You
and
gotta know-
respect them.
You got to know their history. You got to know how they think and feel. And if the way they think and feel is not compatible with you, you're going to have to say, well, it was great fun. I enjoyed it. But I think we have to move on to other relationships because I just don't see marriage in the cards for us.
Right. And the thing is too, Rich, is that we had a lovely sister in our congregation who was engaged. She was originally from San Francisco, came down to our congregation. She was lovely. She was very pretty too. And she got engaged to a brother that was in San Francisco. And he had a few children. I don't know exactly because I never saw him. I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3. 2's couple, 3's a few.
Mhm.
But anyway, and he had been married and he was looking for a wife that she would have not only just walked into being a wife, but now instantly a stepmother. So after she got to know him, I mean, she was dating him for, I'd go out and take her out in service together and we'd talk a little bit, but, you know, I was never a type of person. I'm still not. I'm not a nosy person. I do not get into people's business because unless they want to share it, but I don't start snooping around. I just respect people that way. So anyway, all I knew is that she was engaged to this brother. She got to know him a little bit and found out basically he wasn't in love with her. He was just looking for a mother. He was looking for a wife to be a mother to his children, is what I'm trying to say. And when she realized that, she called off the wedding and, you know, she saw it for what it was. And then as time went on, you know, the brothers in our congregation never gave her any flack. They did not give her any flack. And then as time went on, she found another brother who was single. She was, of course, single, no kids, and they got married. And, you know, that apparently worked out for a while. Last I heard, it didn't work out. It didn't work out. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Mhm.
But anyway, so, you know, you got to ask yourself, what's the motive in this person wanting to marry me, right? People have all sorts of motives, right, Rich?
Well, that's it.
Doesn't mean it's love either.
If it's really going to work and be beautiful, it has to be love.
Right.
It can't be your libido. It can't be that you have to get out of your parents' house. It can't be
I want someone to support me.
that, I want someone to support me. Or if you're a dad and you're raising kids, or a single mother, gee, I hope this guy can financially he can do well by me. I'll marry the guy that has the best income or the best chance of a job.
Mm,
There are a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses marriages that are kind of doomed because, as almost everyone in this audience knows, when you start out and you're young, sex is a big thing. But as the years roll on, it's not a big thing. Security is a big thing. That really is, you've got to be secure.
Hey, Dick and
Jehovah's
Constance,
Witness-
can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
we
in
can
fact, I just want to make sure that we had a number of people trying to talk into the program, but I wanted to
No.
make sure that you could hear them, so I came
No.
back on. Go ahead and I don't know if you want to take calls now or not, but we can take them in a little while. But I just want to make sure people are able to do that. Yep.
Okay,
Sure.
great. It'll be a few seconds. Rick.
Yeah, a little bit.
We'll let them on it. I just want to make.
Yeah, in a few
just-
minutes they'll take some questions and comments in a few minutes. Let them finish up this. Yep. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, this is the research
Yeah.
that we did.
Yeah.
In the Jehovah's Witnesses, higher education, except for last year and this year, was really frowned on.
Oh, big time.
So when you're in, so many of the young Jehovah's Witnesses, they're carpet shampooers, they're house painters, they're window washers, they're janitors,
Housekeepers.
stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
The two things that really kill a marriage is the 1-2 punch
Mm,
is immorality in the marriage
mm,
or financial problems. When you're arguing about money, when you can't keep the lights on, when you can't put gas in the car, when you can't buy groceries because you've got this job that pays minimum wage,
right,
because that's what they want. Don't get an education.
right.
You've got problems.
Or you have, Rich, you have one, say you have 2 people, I don't want to stereotype, but let's put it this way. I have a sister-in-law that's like this, okay? And then this is a true story. My brother was a retired fireman, Okay. And when he retired, he brought in 5,000 a month. And his wife, my sister-in-law, she could go through $5,000 a month like it was water. Okay. She loved to spend money, spend money. Let's go on this trip. Let's have the whole family go. Let's go shopping. Got to go shopping to buy things for the kids and the grandkids. I mean, that would drive me nuts to have somebody like that, right? I mean, you no sooner make the paycheck and it's gone already. So people need to really, really get a hold of their emotions, because it's like overeating, right? And drinking. It's connected to emotions. Spending can do the same thing. There's like a void in somebody. It's like, oh, I got to buy this. I got to have designer clothes, designer shoes, designer clothes. I mean, it's outrageous. And yet everything is so darn expensive. So the other thing I wanted to say, you mentioned there's 4 big issues where people get seriously in trouble in their marriage. Number 1, sex outside the marriage. Okay. Sometimes pornography in the marriage. Okay. There's a lot going on there. The other one is finances. Okay. They're way over their means, or they just can't, make the utilities and the rent. Everything keeps going up with inflation and they're struggling financially. That's a huge one with JWs, because they don't have the advantage of an education or having a real good start in life financially. The other one is in-laws. In-laws are, family members can get right in the middle of your business with your marriage. And that can create, and some of these cultures, that's huge. You're not just married to your husband or your wife, you're married to the whole entire village. Okay. And you're expected to support mama, daddy, auntie, uncle, everybody else. I'm not going to mention the culture, but that's a fact. There are cultures like that.
And another thing that you get everybody in your business.
Right.
Okay. Your book study conductor has certain questions he wants to ask you.
Yeah.
I know we had a book study in our house, and they always look around and make everything has to be perfect for the book study,
The house.
And it's tough when you have young kids,
Yeah.
and if your kid's crying anyway, people are in your finances, people are in your sex life. The Watchtower come out and they had the bedroom laws.
Yeah.
You can't do this, you can't do that,
Right.
It's tough being a Jehovah's Witness. It's tough having a marriage in Jehovah's Witnesses,
Right.
because most Jehovah's Witnesses have menial jobs because they're told not to get an education.
They're materialistic if they do.
If a brother quits high school at 16 years old, the pioneer, all the elders, servants, yay, well, you're doomed. I mean, there are some brothers that get into the trades and make a good living, but the majority don't.
Right.
And the majority, and now that you're early married in your 20s, well, you can drink legally. You really couldn't drink at your house without your father and mother saying something about it, So now I've got this privilege. I can drink. I can have a beer when I come home, or a 6-pack. And I know that's a problem for a lot of Jehovah's
They get
Witnesses.
carried away with that. That's the only drug that they can have, to cut the edge. So, and the other thing, Rich, you brought up an excellent point. When I was a witness, oh my God, this used to just drive me up the wall. There are no boundaries in this organization. People think they have a right to ask you anything they want to ask you, especially if it's an elder, right? Whatever the case might be, it's none of their business, and they feel like they're entitled to it. And God forbid you want to say, mind your own damn business, right? Because it's none of yours.
It kind of reminds me of a time we had these Watchtower with the bedroom laws, right?
Yeah, right.
So one of the elders, he didn't come right out and ask me about our sex life. He said,
"Oh,
how did you find that article?" And I just said, "Good." That was it. But he wanted to.
He's trying to bait you.
Yeah, lead
He's trying
me
to,
on.
Yeah, bait you, reel you in.
Yeah. So are you having oral sex, or you anal sex, or you're into bondage and discipline? I mean, that's the way they think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're pretty perverted, and they don't have any boundaries. but so the other thing I'd like to just say before we open this up, because boy, we can talk for hours and many
We will
many
open
shows
it
on
up,
this,
yep.
and we will get to Joe for sure. But I just want to say this, because once we start opening up, we'll go in different directions. I just really wanted to say that, when it comes to marriage, it doesn't matter if you're a witness or you're not a witness. Okay. A lot of people don't marry for love. A lot of people will marry for convenience. We talked about that very seriously. People will marry for status. Oh my God, I'm married to an elder.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm married to a circuit overseer. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, I'm married to a doctor. Oh my gosh, I'm married to a judge. Whoop-de-doo. Okay. So it's status, it's wealth. Oh, we're going to live in Atherton where Willie Mays lived. Okay. A lot of times it is convenience. It's how can I improve my life in any kind of financially or status by marrying this person, or their family is like, oh my gosh, this family is so theocratic in the organization. Oh my gosh, I'd love to be married in this family. Then it elevates me, right?
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is, whether you're a witness or not, do not marry just for convenience. You're going to marry absolutely for love. Because if it's just for convenience, it's not going to last. And I'm going to tell you an example. This is a true story. A lot of people know that I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. And my brother Johnny and Lisa, they did very, very well for themselves. They're worth about 20 million. I'm not bragging, I'm just explaining. And they live in Hillsborough. Okay, what's Hillsborough, California? Well, that's where Patty Hearst grew up. That's where Bing Crosby was, so forth. Very, very wealthy people. And my girlfriend, Deb, she was Jewish. Her parents had a furniture shop in San Francisco called Four Brothers. They were Jewish. Now, a lot of Jewish people do very, very well for themselves. So the family did very, very well. They moved out of San Francisco and they moved into Hillsborough. Okay. Everything is manicured. It's like Atherton, Beverly Hills. Okay. That's the best way to describe it. You pull in, every home is just manicured. Everybody has their own landscaper, their gardener. Everyone has a housekeeper to clean the house. Everybody's driving in Mercedes-Benz, BMWs. Okay, you get the whole picture, right? Okay. In fact, Elon Musk had bought a home in Hillsborough for 37 million. And he's not there now, but he did. So the point I'm trying to make is, my friend Deb, she was a kick. She said, oh yeah, see this house right here? We're going to her parents' home. I said, oh yeah. And I said, that was Patty Hearst's home, huh? She said, yeah, that's Patty Hearst's home. Because I remembered back in the day when Patty Hearst was taken by the SLA, all the cameras were there and the mother and father was out there. And anyways, I recognized the house. So she said, yeah, that's Patty Hearst's parents' home. And we were going somewhere else, and oh, this is somebody else's home. Okay, so Deb says to me, she says, I'll watch my language, but you'll get the point. Deb says, yeah, there's so many bees that live here. She says, I don't care how much money they make. She says, most of the husbands are out cheating on their wives. And the wives here in Hillsborough, they really don't care. They look the other way. And I said, Deb, how do you know that? She says, I'm telling you, my parents have lived here for some time and we know a lot of families here. And I said, well, why would they stay? Because they love their fur coats. They love their Mercedes. They love their trips to Europe. They love all of that. And they're going to look the other way when their husband is out having an affair with some other chickie poo, because they love the lifestyle.
And they're probably cheating on their husbands at the same time.
Absolutely.
A lot of those marriages are open marriages where anybody can have sex with anybody they want.
Or you see this in Hollywood too a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that, marrying for convenience does not work. I mean, I could never put up with that. I don't care if I lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion. If I had a spouse cheating on me, I'd be out the door in a minute, because there's nothing left, right? There's nothing left.
No trust.
There's no trust. You have no marriage. And then the house, the mansion you live in, Who cares? So what? What's that mean? Nothing. So it's really important that you get to really, really know who you're marrying and that you have genuine love. That's just what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
Okay, so you ready maybe to open up, Rich?
Open it up.
Okay, open up.
Star 6. We're talking about marriages and Jehovah's Witnesses. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go
Hey,
ahead,
it's
brother.
RJ
Who's this?
competing against the Bills and the Broncos right now.
Oh, he's watching the game. Okay, and who's this, RJ? Is this RJ?
Yes.
Hi, RJ.
I think a big problem with dating as a witness is you can't try things on for size. Like, can you imagine the awkwardness of the honeymoon if you found out it's not a right fit or it wasn't an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens.
And I was mostly in when I was age 15 to 21.
Okay.
And there was a lot of witnesses. They get married at like 18 or 19 years old, and
Yeah.
they don't get a chance to date and find out what they like. They just marry the first person they get with.
Right. Right. The first person that
First
they get along.
girlfriend,
That's true.
or
That's very
boyfriend or
true.
whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that. I have seen that. One sister, she got married at 17. The other one got married at 19. She only dated Ernie for 3 months. Then after she got married, she wasn't very happy. Not at all, but they're still married. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think there was one girl she was a couple years older than me at the time, but yeah, they said she was the only high school senior that had a wedding ring.
Oh, wow. Well, she might have been knocked up too.
Imagine that, already being married and finishing up your senior year.
Yeah. I didn't see that, but I do know of one particular gal. She was a year older than me. She got knocked up in high school and didn't really graduate because it's not easy to be a single mother, a teenage mother, and be trying to finish out high school. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. She was not a JW, not a JW. I'm just speaking in generalities. Yep.
And if you go by like witness standards and that, there's not any unchaperoned dating, and you got to go with friends, and you have to like group date, and they want you to be a certain age by the time you date. Like 16 is pushing it. They want you to be like 18,
Mm-hmm.
to do it the right way. I mean, you could before that if you have a willing participant, but
Mm-hmm.
you know how that goes.
Well, when I was in the organization, RJ, they did not have what's the word? Like a online dating thing. They didn't. You just met a brother or sister at the conventions, or maybe you went over to their congregation, but the elders were always watching if you weren't at the meeting. So why are you going to another congregation? You know how that is. So anyway, but now there's online a dating site for Jehovah's Witnesses to be able to meet one another, because this is a real issue among the JWs. You can only marry in Lord, and yet there's not enough brothers. So it's a real challenge for sisters. A lot of sisters suffer from this, especially if they do want to get married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's nice. Internet dating was just picking up, like it wasn't quite there yet. And
Right.
and I'm talking about years before that. It was all the old school way. It was, a friend of a friend, somebody who knows somebody. You go to a witness party or talking at the convention and that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to gather my thoughts here. Is a lot of like there's limited dating pool, and a lot of them settle. They don't find somebody who's like the perfect fit for them. They're just enamored by any type of attention.
That's right. There is a lot of pressure. I must have had like 8 sisters in my congregation, I kid you not, who got married between 1972 and 76, 8 of them. And, Armageddon was coming in 85. So, but there were a couple that got married after that in 76. And, a dear friend of mine who was a regular pioneer, she got married. That didn't last. She married another brother. That didn't last. So she's on her 3rd marriage now. And he's not a JW. But anyway, I asked her, I said, Susie, why did you get married, so young? She says, because there was so much pressure to get married. I said, I don't know. I didn't buy into that. I was not going to let somebody pressure me into one of the biggest decisions in my life. So, yeah, she didn't marry a very good guy. There was domestic violence. It was pretty ugly.
And you see that sometimes. There'll be like some like chubby flub or shub, and he'll have like some gorgeous, wife or something, and it's only because they have being a witness in common.
Sometimes you look at couples and think, wow, they're like Dr. Jekyll, not Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They're like, Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what do they have in common? Sometimes you wonder.
A lot of, I knew a sister that she actually lived with us with my first marriage, and she was willing to marry a brother that was circuit overseer, and he was like 35 years older than her. But the theory being in her head was that it doesn't matter after Armageddon. Our bodies are all gonna generate to perfect bodies. And what is 35 years difference in age in relationship to eternity? And that's the way a lot of sisters view things. And these older bald-headed guys, are snatching up some of these younger sisters. And the marriage isn't fruitful, it's not a happy marriage. But, they're always waiting. Well, after Armageddon, then it'll be a happy, wonderful marriage, because he's going to regrow his hair and he's going to lose 40 pounds and my acne will go away and, it's going to be wonderful. But, they're the pipe dreams and they don't come true.
Right, right.
And Dick, that's one of the things that woke me up from leaving is, because I mentioned I was only in when I was like a young adult, and I was a good-looking guy. I had a clean bill of health. I didn't have any bad habits. I had it all going for me. Everything they tell you, you'll have in Armageddon, or in paradise. I already had, and it wasn't enjoyable for me there. And so if I don't have those things, how is being a witness going to work out if it doesn't work out under perfect conditions?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to this marital thing.
Hi, King of Dogs. Yep.
Yes. How did you recognize my voice? What?
We recognize your voice.
Okay. But, the witnesses taught me only marrying the truth. And do you see what they did there? The Bible says only marry in the Lord. And now think about it. 90% of everyone we run into believes in Jesus. They might have been baptized in the church under the belief of Jesus. And we're actually negating them from marrying someone who believes in Jesus.
Right.
Saying,
good point.
In the truth, which isn't what the scripture says.
Right. It's very true.
Import of what I'm saying.
No, it's a very good point because it's a very true statement.
Yeah, because there are some very wonderful Catholics that love God and go to church all the time and keep the 10 commandments and do the right thing. But if you met that Catholic at your workplace and he was nice to you, he was a good looking guy, he was a decent guy, had a good job, why not? Oh, no.
Oh, you're spiritually weak if you marry outside of the truth.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure on sisters.
Can I?
That's a
I don't know if I'm still on. Could I add one more thing?
Yeah, go
Go ahead.
ahead. Sure.
First came in the witnesses in the mid '70s.
Hmm, yeah.
They're very small congregations, and I'm just going to say it. I'm going to spit it out there. And if Rick doesn't like it, he can put me off. The elders were always married to the ugliest women. And then I thought about, how did this happen? Because they could only marry in the truth. And so they had to take whatever they could get. I'm just
Mm.
being real. And
Well, that goes both ways.
elders a lot of times
Mhm.
ran off with younger women sometimes later, 10, 15 years later. I'm just
Yeah.
an observation, honest observation.
Sure.
That's all. Don't kick me off the air for saying it, okay?
Oh, no, we won't. Well, I was going to say when the comment was made about marrying, when you're talking about Mona, you know, someone 35 years older, let me tell you, that's a huge generation gap. Okay. My oldest brother was 19 years older than me. I was 7 months old when he was getting married.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a huge generation. That could be like, you know, a father, 19, 20 years. You have somebody who's 36 years. Oh my God. First of all, what do you have in common? It's a totally different generation. You talk about music, it's a totally different generation. You're not, you know, somebody who's younger versus a husband that's 36 years old. I can't even imagine. And then as you get older and you age, you know, he's going to have health issues and you're still going to be young. That's a problem. That's
Yeah.
a problem with that age.
Mhm.
And if you have kids, oh my God, he's going to look more like a grandfather rather than a husband.
Go ahead,
Okay.
brother. Yeah.
Dick Constance, Dick Connie.
Hi there.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we're here. Go ahead.
I'm trying to call in. Hello? Yeah.
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you all
you.
hear me? You there?
Yep. Uh-oh, maybe there's a problem. We can hear you.
Okay. Dick Constance, can y'all hear me? Are you there?
We can hear you. Yes, sir. Go ahead. You're on. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we hear you.
Okay, great. That's cool. No, I'm new to the. I'm a first time caller. I watched your program before, Dick Constance, and I'm always watching Rick Fair, and every Saturday I just watch your program. I just want to call in for the first time, you know, and just first of all say hello. How y'all doing? And my name's
Hi.
Mark. I'm calling from Texas.
Oh, thank you, Mark. It was so pleasure
Yeah,
to meet
Mark,
you
welcome.
tonight. Welcome.
Welcome.
Love to hear from you.
Happy to have you.
Love it.
So what's your comment, Mark?
Yeah.
No. The thing is, I left about, I'm going to say back in 2019, after I
Okay.
walked out of the memorial, the last time I ever looked at the organization, but I'm just telling you, this 2026, I'll be 45 years old, and what we're talking about here is the biggest reason why I never got married, having to go by all these rules and all this BS in the organization about getting married, and after I left, it became a whole lot easier, you know, to actually talk to women and date women, and didn't have to be so conscious about myself, and you know, Dick, one of the things that I hated most is back at the district conventions, I dreaded the damn intermission when you had to walk around in circles, go up to the meat market and look around and say, this is what I got to pick from, and walk like a full-grown idiot hoping to get attention from these so-called sisters and hoping someone would give a crap to exist. And for the last part about the time I became PMO, I would just ask my mother for her car keys, and I would just sit in the car during the intermission, during the days before I actually became officially a POMO, because I just couldn't stand walking in circles like a full-grown idiot up in the meat market hoping to get attention, and it just it was really I'm just glad those days are over, that those stupid ass district conventions and those intermissions are done for me. That was probably some of those depressing moments of my life.
Yes.
Yeah, they used to issue signs that you put around your neck, and it said "single and available." Remember those?
Generates.
It would have been cool if I actually had that date, but unfortunately, Elvis didn't want to do that, you know. But
Yeah.
probably one of the best things about not being a witness, my favorite thing is you can actually be yourself, be who you are. I mean, I would go on a date with a few sisters, and that's one thing I definitely could not be. I had to mind my manners, mind my words, watch what I say. Just couldn't talk about it. Couldn't just say, "Hey, pretty girl, think you look hot," and you can't talk to her like that without getting in trouble or Just
Oh, no.
when we go see a movie, and I had to be cautious, telling her I like science fiction and and fight movies, and you just got to be so-called careful. Like, why? Why can't you just be yourself, be who you are?
Yeah, right.
I was just thinking, I mean, you certainly couldn't say to a sister, "Oh boy, you look great in a tight sweater." You couldn't say that. You couldn't say that. Oh, can't say it. I can think of a few other thoughts, but Rick would kick me off the air, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry.
Oh
I'm sorry if I sound like I'm venting here, Dickie Constance, but just that, this is really kind of touchy for me because I've kind of started dating. I mean, I haven't been very successful, but the point is, at least I can just be my silly old self, just be who I am, and just talk about as long as it doesn't draw the line. Talk about whatever I want to talk about when I'm with a date or meeting a woman, and one of the things that we do not absolutely have to talk about unless she wants to is religion. But when she brings it up, some women have actually been fascinated that I was in a cult for about 35 years of my life, and I tell them about it, and sometimes they can't believe it when I tell them about the restrictions on sex and masturbation, the kind of sex you can and can't have, and the elders tell you this, and they think I'm joking when I tell them that, but man, the reality is just how true it is, Dick, and that's terrible.
Well, you're absolutely right. And you touched on something that I liked, and that was you're just yourself. And this is the problem with Jehovah's Witnesses, because they give you these standards of being super squeaky clean and super proper and super
the image.
Everything is image, right?
Right.
So you live in that image while you're dating. You get married, that image isn't kept up to the JW standards.
Right.
And you say, wait a minute, who's this guy that I married?
Right. Or this woman.
What's he doing? Biggest strength, 4 beers.
Right.
Oh my God, But you don't see that when you're dating.
No.
For the sake of everybody, the adult has to come into the room and let everybody know that dating 101. This is why GG for GB has to come in and say,
hi Gilbert.
You never ever talk about masturbation. This is rule number 1. I don't care if she's a Jehovah's Witness. There are certain rules and protocols. Now, some of these things should have been discussed, when we had, gatherings and stuff. But there's a reason why this guy is not having success in dating. And contrary to popular belief, when you are an ex-Jehovah's Witness and you go on a date with a woman and you start telling her about your Jehovah's Witness past, she's smiling and laughing along. But afterwards, she's telling her friends, I just met this weirdo. And you're off the list. So again, lesson number 2 for all of you Jehovah's Witness men. Forget it ever happened. You were never a Jehovah's Witness. You destroy all the evidence and don't ever bring it up. And you will have a very successful. And no, Nadine, I'm not a friend who she I guess moved in with a worldly guy, and she dropped the whole JW thing. And I couldn't better. So I've just given you 2 things that you should never do on a date. Ever talk about your cult sex life, and don't ever talk that you were in a cult. I'm telling you guys, it's just, and I'm playing with the caller. I'm not trying to, knock the guy from,
no, of course not. Yeah.
But we love you.
Yeah.
Can I add to that? The last thing I wanted to tell you is that the problem with Jehovah's Witness marriages, and I did a video on it, is if you just type in the word busybody in the Bible on Google and says, what does the Bible use the word busybody? You'll see that it's there. And it actually mentions that busybodies go from house to house and they're idle with their hands and they're reprimanded. And the Apostle Paul says that you should not talk to them, not as an enemy, but like shameful. And this is the problem with the Jehovah's Witness religion, is that they're busybodies in affairs that are not of their concern. So if a 50-year-old man marries a 25-year-old woman, I am not sleeping in that bed. And so I do not have an opinion about other people's sexual marriages, relationships, or anything. So when you learn to live a life, and this is what I've learned when I left the truth, the organization. It's a lie. When you stop getting involved in other people's affairs, like Watchtower habitually does, then life gets better for you. And this is the problem with Jehovah's Witness marriages, because the woman is listening to Watchtower instead of listening to her husband. The husband is listening to the elders instead of listening to his wife.
Right.
On every subject under the sun, birthdays, Christmas, it's none of anybody's business about anything that happens behind closed doors.
Right. Right.
There, and whether from, so it's called spiritual adultery. Watchtower is the biggest adulterer in the planet. They get involved in your house, in your dealings, and they're spiritually adulterous. And that's why so many Jehovah's Witnesses have spiritual problems, because they're adulterers.
Well, that was the situation you had, Rich.
And I'm just joking with the guy from Texas. You know, he's a first-time caller. He's a good guy. But I had to throw that in.
That's a great comment, Gigi. That's a great comment.
And you know,
yeah. So go back and take
ahead,
notes and write it down. You know, like a good assembly. You know, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
You know, if you marry somebody and he's a ministerial servant or becomes an elder, you've actually lost him, because there is I used to live across the street from the Kingdom Hall. Okay. And you know the cars that the elders drive, and every day I'd go out at night or whatever, I would see the elders there on non-meeting nights. You know, and I said, oh, there's a committee, there's something going on.
Yeah.
Almost every single night, I would look into the parking lot and I would say, oh, brother so-and-so's here. And I would know. And there was always cars in the parking lot from elders. So they always had meetings, whether it was judicial meetings or new light from the Watchtower or whatever, elders meetings. They were always, they did their 8 hours at home, gobbled down a meal,
Right to the Kingdom Hall.
jumped in the shower, put their suit on, off to the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah.
They were required to wear suits.
Yeah.
You know, even
on the nights there was
just meetings.
Yeah.
So they're in a suit almost every single day of their life, right?
Sure.
But so the wife's at home, she's washing the dishes and putting the kids to bed or cleaning the house.
Well, she's like a single parent, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because he's not there. He's bringing home the paycheck, but he's never around.
the Watchtower requires so many hours from brothers and sisters too, but especially elders.
And you know, honey, that destroys families, Rich.
Yeah.
We had an elder. He had been the presiding overseer at one time. You know, everybody loved him and his wife and kids. Oh yeah, the wife got to the point, it's like, you know what, I'm getting sick and tired of this because you're never home. I mean, you're working full time. Okay, then you've got all the meetings, then you've got talks to prepare, then it's just like what you say. And I mean, it got to the point where they separated. They absolutely separated because she was done with that. She felt like she was being a mother and a father because Watchtower demands so much from these elders.
Yeah.
And it's never enough. It's always more and
that's
more
it.
and more. It's never enough.
Never
Rich.
enough, you know.
It breaks families up, Rich. It really does break.
If you're an
families
elder,
up.
you got to take the lead and go out and service. So you got to be there Saturday morning for the group.
Forget trying to sleep in.
I remember one time, I think I brought this out over the year. I was a ministerial servant at the time, and brother calls me up and he goes, every third Saturday, you have to take the group out. It wasn't like, could you or would you? It was like, you have to, because
Giving you an order.
yeah, you know, it's like, well, Saturday is time and a half for me, you know, and I'm going to lose a couple $100, and I need that couple $100.
Right.
It's not to buy a Mercedes. I just needed.
Well, you had a wife and you had two kids.
There you go.
You had 4 people to support. While a lot of these elders, Rich, didn't have children, right? And they didn't have a home. They were just renting, and they were on Section 8 housing, is what you said.
Yeah, and
right?
yes, I lived in an apartment complex, and the manager was a Jehovah's Witness. There was Jim Hossel, he was an elder, wonderful man, truly a wonderful man. And we had a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, families that were living in that apartment complex. They were all on Section 8,
Housing.
which
Could maybe explain
sub-
what that is? for-
that's subsidized housing,
Right,
because your income is so low,
right.
you can't make it. So if the rent in those days was $450,
Mhm.
you'd only have to pay $100
Right, so
because you
you,
had subsidized, right,
so you pay 100, the government would pay the remaining 400.
right.
If
And
it was 500, you said? Or
Yeah.
400, did you say?
I think it was $450
Okay.
when I was paying $450.
Okay, so 450, you only have to pay $100.
Right.
And then government pays $350 every single
Right.
month.
No,
That's Section 8 housing.
the government is represented by the Stars and Stripes flag, the flag of the United States, okay?
Right.
But we can't give that flag respect. We can't salute
You
it.
can't salute it.
But underneath that flag is putting food on your table.
It's giving you food stamps,
Food stamps,
Giving
giving
you
you fuel
Medi-Cal.
assistance.
fuel assistance,
Yeah, it gives you all
Section
these,
8 housing.
yeah, daycare, childcare,
Right.
all this stuff.
SNAP.
Yep.
Mhm,
But you can't salute the flag.
Right.
Well,
Wouldn't it be interesting, Rich, if all the witnesses that, if this country had, because there are some countries that don't offer that, right?
yeah,
But they're not American. They're not from America. But can you imagine if you're a JW and, you needed food stamps, you needed Medi-Cal for your baby,
Mhm.
right? You needed Section 8 housing, you needed all that, and yet you couldn't afford it, but the government didn't provide it. What would these witnesses do,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
What in the world would they do? It's amazing. So,
Star six.
okay, star 6, anyone would like to open up and comment before we go on?
Deputy Carney, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm really enjoying the show. This is really touching some major parts of my life, being a born in, all these things that you're saying about marriage and marrying too early in life, not knowing yourself, marrying for all the wrong reasons. All of that is with my childhood. I think I've said once before that, and I knew a lot of kids, and all of the ones that remained Jehovah's Witnesses and got married that early. Not one of those marriages lasted. Most of those witnesses are now on their second, and then some are on their third marriage.
Yeah.
So it's really funny to me when Watchtower wants to stand up there and talk about how they have the happiest marriages. That is the biggest lie ever.
It is a big lie.
I just
That
wanted
is a
to
big
throw
lie.
in a wrinkle. When I woke up from the Jehovah's Witnesses and I was married to one, and I stopped attending meetings, I found it very conspicuous that my wife, now ex-wife, never once asked me why I had stopped attending meetings and wasn't considering myself a Jehovah's Witness anymore. Never once. You think somebody would ask you why
Right.
you quit doing something for as long as you've been doing it. But one
Right.
of the things that kind of came up when our marriage started to implode was that we realized we never went, or we acknowledged that we never went on dates as a married couple. In other words, let's go home and get dressed and let's go out to dinner and this and that. If we did, it was always with the kids. But in terms of us just going out on a date, just she and I, we didn't do that.
Yes.
The reason was because we never, and I don't think we ever just said it out loud, but we never had anybody to watch our young children.
Oh.
And I realized after I woke up that really deep down inside, we did not trust Jehovah's Witnesses to watch our children. There were other
Wow.
parents in the hall with kids right around the same age. But
Wow.
we hardly ever let our kids go and have a sleepover. They could have sleepovers at our house. But and only when my then wife was at home because she worked nights. So if there was a weekend when she had to work, I was like, no, you can't bring anybody over. I said, because your mom is not going to be here. I said,
Right.
you guys have sleepovers, but only when your mom's here because I have two daughters. But
Right.
but the point I'm making is I realized that even though my ex-wife would probably never acknowledge the pedophile problem in the Jehovah's Witnesses or worldwide, but still, when I brought up the subject of how we never went on dates because we never felt comfortable leaving our kids with the Jehovah's Witnesses, she had to acknowledge, we never felt comfortable doing that. And we only left our kids with Jehovah's Witnesses one time, and that was because her son had some legal issues and he had a court date. And so we left our kids with an elder and his wife that lived relatively close to us. And I'm telling you, when we were done in that courtroom, we were almost running down the street to get to the car to go get our babies. And
Wow.
so the point that I'm bringing up is in this organization, I would imagine there's probably other people out there listening right now that are probably shaking their head like, yeah, I never really felt comfortable leaving my kids anywhere. I never even thought about the why, but I sure as heck didn't leave my kids. And I definitely didn't let them, spend the night with people. So that's another thing that comes along with marrying in this organization is that you really are not going to trust other witnesses around your kids, or at least you shouldn't.
Right.
Well, you're absolutely right.
Wow,
You
great
have,
comment, Stefan.
Stefan, you had every right to be apprehensive
Yeah.
about sending your kids because it's all over the news. There are elders that are being arrested and serving prison sentences for what they did. Oh, it's a sleepover. Oh, it's safe. He's an elder. Well,
He's in good standing,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, especially
He's an elder, ministerial, sir.
Oh,
they're a
I've got,
theocratic family.
I have nothing to worry about. He's an elder. Well, you know what? You get elders serving prison sentences now.
Mhm.
And if they didn't physically abuse a child, they covered it up when they had, when they knew there was pedophiles in the congregation, they wouldn't tell the congregation. They would, but if you're a person like myself, you commit adultery, you confess it to the elders, well, they have no problem getting on the platform and say, Brother Borghi's been disfellowshipped. They got no problem with that. But they have a problem with telling the congregation.
About
Like
the pedophiles.
in my congregation, there was 5, and then I found out on six screens, there was a brother Luke, who was my youngest son's best friend. He was abused. So I knew the person that did it. I didn't know he was a pedophile, but so that was 6 pedophiles
In your congregation?
in my one congregation of 125 people.
So it makes him wonder today, Stefan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Makes him wonder, right, Rich? Is it okay if I say that?
Yeah, my youngest son has a drinking problem.
A very serious drinking problem.
And he
He's a
won't-
JW.
He won't talk to
But-
me. He hasn't talked to me in 20, 30 years. Okay. So I wonder if he was abused by,
The same guy that
Same
Lukey
guy.
was.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because Lukey and Stephen
It sounds like,
were best
something
friends.
traumatic happened to him, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Right. We only, wonder.
Yeah. And
Just wonder.
I'll tell you a funny story. It won't be long at all, but there was an elder when I first got to this last congregation that I attended. He wound up being a book study overseer, and when we still had book studies, and then years later, he had stepped down, I guess, as an elder. It was the weirdest meeting. We had this meeting, and they read that he was no longer an elder. And so I'm kind of like what you mentioned earlier, Connie. I'm not a person that's in the gossip, so I didn't know anything, and I wasn't going to ask, and I really didn't want to know. My business, I got enough to do in life.
Right.
But years later, we worked out in field service, and he said, "Hey, I want to go to breakfast with just the guys." He goes, "Come on, can you ditch your family?" And I said, "Yeah." So it's me and another brother that he was always pretty good friends with, and another brother. And we go out and we went to so I was really excited about it. I'm like, because this is something we never really did. I never really had a whole lot of association. So we go to breakfast, and he starts talking about how he's so upset and he wants to clear his name. And I'm kind of on the end of the table here. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
And so it comes out, during the conversation that he had been removed because it was alleged that he had molested a child. And when he said that, I was eating and I dropped my fork and I looked at him because this, like I said, he was my book study overseer. So after the book study, he'd be playing with my daughters and he's bouncing them on his knee and all the rest of this. And I'm thinking to myself, and he was somebody said that he molested, a child. This is the only way. And I guess they made a change in Watchtower where you couldn't serve as an elder if you had this allegation over your head. So he's talking about how he was going to clear his name and this and that and the other. And, he wound up leaving our congregation, and he was there before I got there. And he wound up leaving our congregation and going elsewhere. And that was probably about the first and only time that I had ever heard some allegation about, pedophilia in the congregation. And I was very much a PME, Jehovah's Witness. But
right.
The very
Right.
ones you need to watch are the ones that you think you can trust, which is these elders. Those are the main ones you need. And I had another elder tell me one time,
Mhm.
we were working in service, and he said, this is an elder. And he said, I told your wife. I said, what do you mean you told my wife? And I got right in. I said, what do you mean you told my wife? I didn't like that. So that whole thing started off wrong. And so he's apologizing profusely. No, I don't mean it like that. I'm like, yeah, no, you don't tell my wife. I don't go and tell your wife. No, I didn't mean it like that. I was saying to your wife, since she works nights, I can come over. And then he changed it to, I can come over. And then he said, my wife and I can come over, pick up your girls and take them out in service. And I got right in his face. I said, let me tell you something. I said, the only way my daughters are going out in field service is if they're going out with me or they're going out with their mom. Nobody's taking them in service other than us. I said, you got that straight? And he
Good
just
for
looked at
you,
me,
Stefan.
sure. And he, I was just like, is this guy a pedophile? And this is why he's trying to get my daughters alone so he can win my
Exactly.
that it's okay. And then, hey, their moms, and then he's out doing. So that had a lot to do with really making me think twice about these
wake up.
elders.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, Stefan, that's exactly what happened to Candace Conti. Her parents were divorced, and the mother, I guess, wanted to sleep in, or maybe she had other plans for Saturday. I don't know. But anyway, what ended up happening is Jonathan Kendrick thought, I'll just take her under my wing, I'll be like a father image for her. Yeah, right. He'd take her out in service, and he was doing more than taking her door to door. Okay. And she was a little girl. That's exactly how it happened.
Mhm.
That's exactly. And Stefan,
Wow.
those pedophiles are flipping predators. They're looking for children and families.
Yeah.
All they have to do is gain your trust, and there they got the opening right there. Okay. You got to be very, very
Exactly
careful. I
right.
hope people are really listening to this. You were a great, great father, Stefan.
hope so, too.
Kudos to you. You really were.
You
Good
just
man.
reminded me. This is my last comment. I promise. You just reminded me.
Okay.
When I
Yeah.
got of age, like into my 20s, and I'm kind of looking around, one of the
Yeah.
things I see that's already been commented on is that a Jehovah's Witness male could definitely marry somebody that was considerably younger, than him.
Right.
But the thing that I
Right.
saw that I thought was
Right.
bizarre, and I never
Yeah.
put it together back when I was an actual witness, which is why would a single Jehovah's Witness male who has all these options in somebody that he can marry
Mhm.
somebody that's older or younger, but who already
Mhm.
has kids? Because that was
Exactly.
a huge thing when I was a kid coming up. If a sister, like a young person coming up, and she wound up involved with somebody and she had a kid, I don't care how attractive she was like on the bottom of the list simply because she had a kid. None of the guys that I knew wanted to date and marry anybody
That's
that
right.
already had a kid. But then
Yeah.
you also start having these brothers, and it seems like they're looking for women that
Yeah.
have a kid. And I always wonder, why would a person choose that person when they could
Right.
choose a person that didn't have kids? And of course, I woke up
Exactly.
and I know why, because like you said, they're predators. Thanks.
Right. Right. They are predators. And Stefan, that's an excellent point because, when you're single and you've never been married, you're just accustomed to, your own life. So when you get married, now you have to get adjusted to this new person that's in your life, right? Well, that in itself is a huge
Right.
adjustment. You're two different people coming maybe from two different backgrounds, two different cultures, whatever the case is, right? And you're trying to be man and wife and, start your life together. You add kids on that. So you're going to step into a marriage with someone who has children. You go from being single, now you're an instant stepfather, right? It's like, wow, and you've never been a parent. It's like the financial responsibility, the emotional responsibility, the spiritual responsibility. And, your point is really, really well made, Stefan, because, some of these sisters I'm going to just say it like it is, they're very desperate. Okay. It's like, oh my God, I want sex. Come on, let's get real here. I want sex. I haven't had sex in a while. I've got the kids. I need financial support. I'm lonely. Okay. And I'm looking for all of the above. And so it's like, okay, there's this one brother, and he's interested in it. Fine. Great. I don't have a lot of options. I'll go with it. Yeah. And sometimes these men are pedophiles. Okay. They're looking for women like that have daughters. And there can even be sons that are molested as well. So I'm just saying, you got to be so very careful. You got to be so very, very careful. I'll tell you this story. I wasn't raised in the organization until I got to be a teenager. It made me just think of a girlfriend that I had. I lost my father when I was 13, for people that know me. My dad died, but I was baby number 5, so I grew up with older parents. And anyway, I had a neighbor across the street. We grew up with in our community, a lot of Irish, a lot of Italians. And I had a girlfriend lived across the street. Her name was Linda Takori. And her father and mother, of course, were married. She had a brother named Joey. Anyway, the father, the name Takori was very well known in our community. They owned Brentwood Markets, which was a supermarket. Anyway, her father ended up coming down with cancer and dying. And now I'm in junior high school. I was 13 when my dad died, and Linda was a year younger than me. Okay. So all of my girlfriends had a mother and a father, but I was the only one that had just a mother. Well, Linda was the same situation I was in. She lost her father because of death. Well, so we had that in common, which was a real bond. And it was pretty important, especially when you're in your teenage years, because you sort of feel like, well, why does everybody have a mother and a father and I just have a mother? Why did I have to lose my father, right? You go through that mentally. So she and I had that in common, which was, pretty special. And anyway, her mom and dad were young. How old would I say? Probably in their 40s. And so her mother's name was Shirley. Shirley ended up marrying another guy. His name was Matt. Okay. None of us knew Matt, but anyway, what ended up happening is Linda's mom met this guy, Matt. He had been in the military. Couldn't tell you what branch, but he had been. And so he's stepping into this relationship with a woman that's a widow, and she has 2 children, and her children are teenagers. And anyway, the grandmother happened to live in Hillsborough, and they sent Joey and not Tina, I just said her name. Anyway, Linda, I'm sorry, Linda and Joey sent him to Italy. They went to Italy, had a nice trip while the mom remarried. Okay. So Joey and Linda come back and find out, wow, we got a new father. It's our stepfather. Okay. And it's like, whoa. So that was a big shock. But the point I'm trying to make is he was a pedophile and the mother did not know it. And I'm not quite sure what he did to her. He tried to make a move on her, most likely when she was in the bedroom, undressing or whatever. And word got around to a neighbor who'd been there forever, and then back to my mom. And it's like, wow, that's incredible. Well, the mother ended up divorcing him. To this day, Linda doesn't even know I know this story. But thank God her mother believed her. And, he was a predator. What can I say? So this is the point. I want to say this. So he worked at the grocery store. Okay. Because I said, Linda's father had worked they owned Brentwood store. So he got the job because of being married to the Takori family. Anyway, so I'm going through the store, and lo and behold, there's Matt, right? So I come up to the counter. Now I'm older, right? And I hadn't seen him, oh my gosh, in years. So of course, when you're a teenager versus when you're a grown woman, you look very, very different. I will never forget this. Okay. I was by myself. Of course, I was single, bought some groceries. He didn't know me from Adam. And I said, oh, hi, Matt. And he was the bagger, right? I mean, he was the bagger that day. And anyway, so, I'm just saying. So I said, hi, Matt. I said, you're Linda's stepfather, I said. And the look, oh my God, the look he gave me was like he looked so evil, and he looked like right through me, like, oh, wow. She knows who I am. And I'll never forget it. That look of evil that he looked at me, like through me, just gave me like the chills. And I thought, oh my God. So he didn't want me to say anything because, of course, he's at work and he had coworkers. But yeah, I had his number. I'll tell you that. So, that kind of stuff happens in families, whether they're JWs or not. Some of these men are predators, and now there are women that are pedophiles too, but that's rare. It's mostly men. So these women have to be very careful. Go ahead, please. Mhm.
Yeah, I want to just touch on a few things that some people had said, and I'll start with I think it's Gabriel. He used to be an elder.
Yeah. Gigi?
So,
Gilbert?
yeah, Gilbert. I apologize. I said Gabriel. Well,
No, it's
first
okay.
of all, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and he'll know this, is the so-called vetting process. When you're
Vetting.
interested in a so-called brother or a so-called sister, okay, what people were encouraged to do if they were interested in a brother or sister were to go to the service committee or the service overseer. Now, Rich, you mentioned how people are not really vetted. Let's just tell you how they vet. Sister's interested in brother. She's encouraged to go to the service committee, and what do they tell her? Well, he's a 10-hour publisher. We use him for the Watchtower. Okay, what have they told that poor sister? All they gave her was a number and something that she already knows, right? Now, the reason I brought that up is what they fail to tell people are some of the things they know about that individual. And so I hope you don't mind. I just want to share one experience with you.
Sure.
I was going to share
Sure,
two. And by the way, I think it was Stefan that said that most witness marriages don't last.
Right, they
A
don't.
lot of these young people get married young, they get divorced. In fact,
Yeah.
their record is worse than many other religious organizations. Case in point, I was looking at all the people I knew when I was growing up in the Watchtower, and they're all divorced times 2 or 3 times. So they don't have a good track record. And that's
Right.
probably because they listen to a group of men that say, oh, yes, this sister, she's an auxiliary pioneer. She makes the meetings. Or this brother, he's a 20-hour publisher. He's a pioneer, whatever. That's not vetting. Okay. That is terrible vetting. So what I wanted to share is this experience. And I think Rick might be able to shoot up some pictures. There was a situation in Pueblo, Colorado. I actually met this brother. I was given a talk in Pueblo. I used to give a lot of talks in Pueblo, pretty big town in Colorado, steel mill town. And I met this brother. Now, he is actually doing life in prison. And the reason he's doing life in prison was he killed his wife because he did not want the stigma and he did not want to lose privileges for being divorced. That's how much pressure the Watchtower puts on you. And by the way, he's actually on 2 programs. He was on Dateline, and there's another show called Murder in a Small Town. And so I'll tell you a little bit of the background. That's his photo when he was in intake at the correctional facility. He's doing life without parole. Now, keep in mind, this man murdered a woman so he could be free to remarry and have good standing in the congregation. So what paradise is he enjoying right now?
Right.
He's enjoying a prison cell in a pod. at a prison facility. Now, what I want to do is I want to just share the background of what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
He was
You
a
want
brother
to say,
in,
you want, excuse me, Joe, you want to say his name, honey, for people that
yeah,
can't see
if,
it, they're just
if you
listening in,
want to
please?
look this up, his name is
Yeah.
Ralph Candelario.
Mhm.
Ralph Candelario. He was a
Mhm.
baptized brother, and he had been married before, and she disappeared. She disappeared.
And she was a
Nobody knew where she
GW.
was at,
She was a
and
GW, right, Joe? Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
she
a
was.
Jehovah's. They were Jehovah's Witnesses.
she was. Okay.
He lived in Pueblo, Colorado, and she
Right.
disappeared.
Right.
So after a couple years goes by, guess what? He's free to remarry.
Right.
And
Because
I
she
don't know
died.
how the elders handled
Yeah.
that. And he
Right.
met a sister, and they ended up moving to Walsenburg, Colorado. So if you want to Google this, you could actually go to Reddit. There's a thread that talks about this situation. He met
Yeah,
this
type his
sister, and I
name in.
believe she was a pioneer.
Okay.
And they started up like an antique shop in
Okay.
Walsenburg, Colorado.
Mhm.
And what he did was he bludgeoned her to death. He killed her, and then he
Mhm.
staged a home invasion. Now,
Mm.
Walsenburg, because they have a small department, they only have about 10 officers. They
Mhm.
called CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and so
Mhm.
they started investigating it. And lo and behold, he's the one that staged the home invasion, and he
Mhm.
murdered his second wife. Now,
Mhm.
interestingly, I'll tell you how he met his second wife.
Okay.
His, I believe it was his son from his first marriage. He was interested in a sister in Pueblo, Colorado, the East Congregation, and he decided to chaperone them, and her mother also decided to chaperone them. Again, there's that
Okay.
control.
Yeah.
You can't trust two kids, whether they're going to lunch during the daytime. They have to have a chaperone. So they were
Yeah.
chaperoning the the young brother and sister.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to the young brother and sister, they started courting without anybody knowing. And then they surprised him one day and said, "Guess what? We got married." So the two chaperones got married. They end up in
Okay.
Walsenburg, Colorado. And again, please, if you just Google Walsenburg, Colorado, Ralph Candelario, you'll
Mhm.
find the whole
You'll find
thing.
it. Yep.
And he, they ended up getting married. They started this little uh, antique shop.
Gotcha.
He staged a home invasion after he killed her. And
Wow.
I'll never forget. I was watching Dateline, and then I saw they also showed this. They aired it on a show called Murder in a Small Town. And the CBI investigator, and this is very profound, she said it's so sad that the only thing we could come up with why he murdered this woman was so he
Mhm.
could be free to remarry. Now,
Mhm.
again, why didn't he just divorce her,
Right.
get disfellowshipped, go through the loopholes for 2 years, right?
Right.
And then
Right.
get reinstated, and then but there's that watchtower thinking. You got to
Right.
be free. You got to be spiritually free to remarry, and so he chose murder. Now
Mhm.
here's where it's really interesting. Remember the
Mhm.
first wife that disappeared?
Right.
The son, during the investigation, was looking through boxes, and he found his mother's passport, driver's license, her purse, everything that she would have if she left. So
Right.
allegedly, according to Dateline, allegedly he murdered two women so he could be free to remarry. So vetting, if you want to vet, telling a brother or a sister how many hours a brother, and I know they don't count hours anymore, but telling a brother or a sister that a person's in good standing does nothing for that person. And I'll say, I'll close it with this. When I started courting, I know it's dating, but they call it courting. I'll never forget. The presiding overseer asked me how long we were going to court. We had been courting for about 2.5 months, and I said probably about 6 months. He said, "No, you got to move along with this." And I said, "Why?" And of course, I was a servant at the time. I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the chances of you or her committing, fornication, are very high the longer you court." So we didn't even get a chance to really get to know each other before we got married. So that's another problem with the Watchtower, but it's all about Watchtower control. And I'll share one more experience that really shows how deep the control is. When I was serving as an elder,
Joe, can I ask you a question? Because your voice cut off at one point. If you could just clarify what you said, when the elders asked you how many months you were planning on dating Angie, your response was what? How many months?
I said we would like to court for 6 months.
6 months, right? Because the 6 was cut off. Okay, and the elders thought that was too long.
Yeah, too long. So, we kind of had to rush things along for them.
Right.
Now, what I wanted to share is how tight Watchtower control is if you want to get married in the Kingdom Hall. And I'll just close with this. I remember a brother and sister, they really liked me and they wanted me to preside over their wedding. They were going to get married at the hall. They already had the approval. And I'll never forget, they had asked me if they could play a song from Billy Ocean. The song was called Suddenly.
Yeah, it's a pretty
song. And of course, me being an elder for almost 13 or 14 years, I never read all the letters. I didn't like the Shepherd the Flock of God book. It was nothing but a book of rules, right? So I said, I have no problem with that. Well, a couple of elders pulled me in the back room and said, "Is it true that you are going to have them play this song?" They called it a worldly song. It was actually a non-witness song. And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't see any problem with that." And they said, "No, they get to pick 3 songs out of the Kingdom Melodies book." So I think they picked Shulamite Maiden, but it's all about control.
Right.
It's all about control. So in conclusion, think about Ralph Candelario. Think about his paradise.
Right.
Because of Watchtower control, a couple sisters, one for sure lost her life. One allegedly was killed at the hands of this man, right? Because of the so-called vetting process, they probably told him, "Oh yeah, he's a 10-hour publisher. He reads the Watchtower, da. But they really didn't get to know this man. This man had no problem killing a person so he could be free in the eyes of a man-made organization. And then think about him.
Right.
He's so deep into this cult, this structure, that he has no problem killing 1 or 2 women so he could move on to the next. So it's really sad. It's not just pedophiles. I mean, this guy had evidently it didn't bother his conscience to kill somebody so he could move on to the next wife. And I just wanted to share that with you. And guys, I really hope if you want to do some research, it's on Reddit too, but it happened in Walford, Colorado. His name was Ralph Candelario. So thank you for letting me share that with you guys.
Yeah. Now that happened back in 2016, and what I had read, Joe, is that his first wife's name was Pam, and his second wife's name was Dina, which was interesting. And it makes you wonder. Makes you wonder what were the issues that were going on in their marriage, type of thing, for him to, to resort to murder. Really? At least if you commit adultery, you're going to be disfellowshipped, but then eventually you can come back and be reinstated. What in the world was he thinking to murder someone? God never approved that.
He
Never
chose
has.
murder. And here's the saddest part.
Yeah.
The son and her daughter, they're divorced.
Yes.
They're not even together.
Wow.
And they were
Oh,
baptized
wow.
in the Watchtower. So the Watchtower they don't have a good track record. They could say, well, all these other organizations, they have a terrible track record when it comes to marriage. If you only knew how many people I know that are divorced. I know a brother, he was an elder. He had been married 5 times.
Whoa.
And he's no longer an elder anymore. In fact,
wow.
he comes from a very prominent family, the Beaubien family out of Colorado. Orlando Beaubien had several kids, and all of his kids are all divorced. One of his daughters, her husband stabbed her. He's in prison for life. He stabbed her in the front yard. That happened in Pueblo. Yeah, it's the Watchtower has a terrible track record, and I think Gilbert, he could attest to that. But I'll let you go, guys. Thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for coming on, Joe.
Well, I was going to say this is something that Watchtower never wants anybody in the congregation or out of the congregation to know about, because it's all about image. Oh, you married this brother, he's so theocratic, you're the happiest people in the world, you're going to live happily ever after until you get to paradise. No. And Joe had been in law enforcement, which is very, very interesting. So that was the mugshot of him, of this Ralph Candelario. I'll spell his name for those who don't have YouTube Live or Facebook Live. It's Ralph, of course, and the last name is Candelario. It's C like Charlie, A-N like Nancy, D like David, E like Edward, L-A-R-I-O. Ralph Candelario. And he's in prison for life. This guy, he was a Jehovah's Witness.
He might be studying with the witnesses, because every year the Department of Corrections has to update their their intake photo. And I noticed he has a beard.
Yeah.
He has a beard. And he might have got wind that they changed the policy. So he might be studying with them right now. And one last thing I wanted to say. I was off one day and this was on, and there were 2 other murders. I watched the ID channels, the Investigative Discovery Channel, and they have a lot of programs. I'm not making this up. Okay, so the first show was called. It was like a 2020 or something like that, and that dealt with the man. I believe this was in Washington. He had been disfellowshipped because he embezzled some money. He was a witness. He had a wife and he had 4 kids, I believe, and he was struggling because they disfellowshipped him. They fired him from his job because he worked for a brother. He ended up killing his entire family. And I was just like, I had just been dismissed from the Watchtower, and I'm like shocked. I had known elders that murdered before, but when you watch it on TV, it hits you, right? And of
Right.
course, he annihilated his entire family. His last name was Lungo. Okay. And then after that, there was a show called Wives with Knives. I'm not making this up. And this was a sister, I think it happened in California. She killed her husband. She stabbed him to death. And she tried to make it look like a home invasion. And then after that was the Murder in a Small Town, and Ralph Candelario was on there. And I'm thinking, my goodness, what were they doing? They just decided to pick on the Watchtower that day.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
And Joe, you also had said that at one point you had met this guy, Ralph Candelario, before
I
this
met him
happened. Can you explain
I
that?
met him at an assembly
Mm-hmm.
around, I think it was around 2002. I met him at an assembly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to regurgitate stuff, but I know of 3 elders that committed murder in Pueblo, Colorado. One outside of Walsenburg. Again, you can't make this stuff up. He
Right.
shot his wife in the face in front of his kids. He only did 2 years at a psychiatric facility.
Wow.
And we knew them very well. I was only about 14, 15 when that happened. And then I knew our presiding overseer, everybody loved him, and it was a big shock. He had beat up his wife pretty bad. And when the police showed up, of course, he went after the officers with a knife, a large knife, and they killed him. They shot him with the shotgun. And then there was another one. I don't know how they get away with this, but they pull the psychological issues, and maybe that was it. This was in Garden City, Kansas. And by the way, this brother still owes me $2,000. I'll never get it. Just that's a side note. They were always broke. They were always broke. Housing. You know, she was a pioneer. Well, unbeknownst to me, he was beating her bad. And one day he beat her bad, but he beat her in the face. He never beat her in the face. Police show up and he skips. Well, they finally find him, and lo and behold, they did remove him as a ministerial servant. But do you want to know, after he almost killed his wife, she was in the hospital for like a week. You know what he pulled? He pulled a mental breakdown card. And he spent like 4 days in a mental hospital. So I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of baggage in the Watchtower, and you know they'll never bring this stuff up, and that's why we have this forum. So I'm gonna let you go, guys.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. I was going to say thank you, dear. I was going to say that's why it's very, very important to really, really get to know somebody very, very well before you marry them. And, you know, abuse can be very dangerous.
Can I just share one more thing? I get to talk to them.
Go ahead. Yes, we'd love to hear it.
This brother used to, I really helped him a lot, you know, because he was always broke. He never he did this just mediocre work so he could auxiliary pioneer with his wife and all that. Well, anyway, I was invited, and again, I should have seen that this was a very, very sadistic and violent man.
Wow.
But we would have them over a lot because they didn't have food in their fridge. So I would call them and we'd have barbecues. So one day I had given a talk and I was invited over to their house. Now I'll just share this quick experience. He married a sister that had 3 daughters and he had a son. Now remember, they're not his kids, right? And I believe Stefan said something about there's this thing where brothers marry sisters with kids, sisters marry brothers with kids. Okay, so they're struggling. So I gave this talk and they invited me over. And I'll never forget, this is why I cannot, it's a trigger. Fried bologna is a trigger for me. So
Oh, wow.
I'm in the living room and she's cooking fried bologna and scrambled eggs. Now I don't I'm very particular and I shouldn't be that way, but I was going to tell him, I think I'm going to, just I'm not feeling. I was trying to make. I was trying to come up with some way to get out of this. I didn't feel like fried bologna, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, what happened? Why she was in the kitchen. I did not know one of her daughters acted up at the Kingdom Hall. Now, she was about 13 years of age.
Okay.
And I'm not making this up. And I should have, I was just shocked that it happened.
Okay.
She came out of the room and he told her to get, now, guys, I wish I could go back in time and report this to Child Protective Services, but I was so stunned. She comes out. I didn't know she was like grounded or whatever. She was in a room.
Okay.
Right?
Young girl. Yeah.
His wife's in the kitchen, and he pulls out this big stick. I mean, it was not a 2x4, but a stick, and he stripped her naked and beat her. And I had a panic attack. In fact, that was why I left. I should have went straight home and called Protective Services, but I was so
traumatized.
I freaked out. I was like shocked. I was in shock. And I actually called him that night and I said, Grant, how can you do that? And we got in a big argument. Now, here's what I'm going to share with you. This is going to be the last point. My Uncle Pete, who got everybody into the Watchtower, was not only a serial pedophile, he was a true sadist. And he would beat his kids naked. Who does that? I'll tell you who does that. Serial pedophiles and sadists. And that is what the Watchtower will do everything they could do to hide it. By the way, my uncle, this day, he lives in Phoenix now. He is not allowed to ever be a servant or an elder because of the things he did. He's in good standing. Well, he's in good standing, but he can never serve as an elder or ministerial servant. So anyway, I just want to share those. I know I threw a lot out at you, but this is the stuff the Watchtower hides.
Right. Did you want to say something, Rich?
Yeah, no, that the one you're talking about, Joe, he should be in jail.
Yeah.
Never mind a servant or an elder. He's eliminated from that possibilities. We can take a few more calls. Maybe Rick will be gracious and let us stay on a little bit longer because I'd like to take some more phone calls. *6.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. We love you, Joe.
Yeah, we do. *6. What do you think about Jehovah's Witness marriages?
Oh, don't be bashful. There's a lot to be said. Is everybody quiet all of a sudden?
Well, if nobody's going to comment, I'm going to wish.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now, Stefan. Yes.
Can you guys?
Yes.
Okay, I've got a story I'll tell very quickly.
I'd love to hear it.
A couple when I was probably about 19, and they went to a congregation in the same building as me, but not my congregation. But anyway, I couldn't take my eyes off of the sister. She looked just like the sister that I was dating that lived in California. So after the meeting for service, I went over and I introduced myself, and I'm telling them the story about how she looked so much like my girlfriend. Well, this husband, he was just, he was angry, but then the more I kind of talked, he kind of softened up, and after a while, he was even smiling, and then he just kind of walked away as me and his wife talked, and I never met her before. They were brand new converts to Jehovah's Witness. So the very next day, I made sure that I brought in pictures of my girlfriend from California to show him so that he wouldn't think anything was going on
Like you're
between
trying to hit on
us. I showed him the pictures, and after that, he was totally cool with me. He would see me, shake my hand, we'd laugh, and we'd talk, and that was it. Anyway, life goes on. Years later, one sister that we had kind of known for quite some time, in fact, she had a big crush on, my then best friend. And we got word that she was getting married, and we were really happy for her. Well, I go to my district convention, and I run into her, and she gives me a big hug, and then I get to sense some presence, and I kind of look behind her, and it was the same brother that was married to the sister who looked like my girlfriend. Now, this is years in between. And I don't remember names at all, but faces I never forget. So I knew who this guy was, and I knew what our experience was way back in the day. And so she's like, oh, this is my husband. And I'm like, oh, man, nice to meet you, and blah, 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 blah. But the look that he had on his face, he wasn't friendly. He was very standoffish. He was like, I'm shaking your hand, but what I really want to do is punch you in the face. And the look that I gave him was, you can try it if you want, but I got about 20 friends all standing not too far from me, and we'll stomp you right in this kingdom hall. So we kind of, that was it. And so I said, well, listen, I got to go, because she was standing there talking, we're kind of getting caught up. I said, well, listen, I got to go, because I could tell he was getting mad. And I wasn't leaving for my sake. I was leaving for her sake. If this is how he's treated, who knows what he might be doing to her when they get home or whatever. Anyway, she finds my friend, and she asks him if he can come to the house and do some work, because she had bought a house right before they got married. She wanted some work done, and my then best friend was a general contractor. And again, we've known this for 10, 15 years even. So he said, yeah, sure, go, blah, blah, blah. And I pulled him to the side. I said, look, I said, you remember back in the day, the guy? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, our friend is married to him. He goes, what? He goes, are you sure? And I said, hey, come on, I don't forget a face. He goes, wow, that's interesting. He's like, I wonder what happened to the first wife. I was like, I don't know. I said, but I can tell you that guy is crazy. I was like, if I were you, I would not take that job. Well, my friend is always been the one that kind of, he makes his own decisions and all of that, but it's always good to listen to counsel too, But anyway, he takes the job. So he calls me one day. He goes, you know what? He goes, I wake up in the morning, because she told him to watch the house while she was out of town. She had taken her daughter down south to be with her relatives. And he goes, and I got up in the morning, and all my tools are gone. My meeting bag, it had a shit case. He said, that's all gone. He says, all my stuff is gone. I said, really? I said, yeah. He says, but yet I looked all around. There's no signs of a break-in. He goes, I don't know what's going on. And I said, well, what's going on is this guy that she's married to, because we found out at that point they had gotten separated. I said, this is him. I said, he is coming in to the house. I said, if I was you, I'd get out of there. Well, he's not going to run me off and blah, blah, blah. So he didn't leave. So he wound up getting a call from this guy. And the guy was like, if you want your stuff back, you come and you meet me on the corner or this, that, and the other thing. I said, listen. I said, wait for me. I'm on the way. I said, I'm going to go get some baseball bats and a hammer and everything else. I'll meet you. I said, but do not go by yourself. And I said, I'm going to call a couple other buddies, and we'll all come. Well, he decides to go anyway. He goes by himself. So the guy just throws his stuff out the street, and, nothing transpired. I was like, I said, I told you that guy was crazy. I told you not to go. I said, you had to go. And I said, now look at, I said, what could have happened? Anything could have happened. Oh, I'm not scared of that guy. You don't have to be scared. This guy is obviously crazy. So a little bit after that, he calls me, and he's emotional. And this is a guy who is not emotional. His mom died, he didn't shed a tear. His sister died, he didn't shed a tear. But he's emotional. I said, what happened to you? And he said, oh, you didn't hear? And I said, hear what? Well, the sister that this guy was married to, who asked him to come to our house and do the work and all that, he beat her to death. And when my friend told me this, I turned on the news, and sure enough, it was all over the news. This guy beat her to death. And now he's on the lam. And they found the guy a few days later, and he was like clear across town in a parking lot, and he had blown his brains out. So the point that I'm making, this is another thing, and this is not just witness marriages. This is just being married to anybody. But we know that this organization goes out to these prisons and these jails, and they witness to people. You really don't know who these people are. So before you get married, is my point. Before you get married, you really want to do some kind of a background check on these people. You don't know, who they are. And the only good thing I shouldn't say good thing that came out of it, but the only thing we were glad of is she had just dropped her daughter off down south with her parents. Had she not done that, he might have killed them both. And so that's probably about the only decent thing that came out of it. But it just really kind of underscored to me that you just don't know who people are, and you really want to check them out, especially if they're fairly new to this organization. Thanks, guys.
Right. And Stefan, how old was the daughter? Do you know that she dropped off down in the South?
She was a teenager. She was a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And so is that,
And,
oh, I was going
and then
to say,
another
so
thing where
he killed himself.
once she
Yeah.
got a feel for what this guy was like, she did go to the elders and say, "Hey, I'm a little bit afraid. This guy's kind of crazy." And they did nothing. And I don't know, maybe what do I expect them to have done? I mean, what were they supposed to do? Go camp out, at the house, and every time he raised, his voice, they jump in the middle of him. I mean, I don't know what I expect, but she did go to the elders. She got nothing from them. Heck, you can even go to police and say, you're in fear of your life or something. They're going to tell you there's not much they can do. But it was just such a sad situation. I wish I had known about it beforehand, because maybe what we could have done is offered her a place to stay, and where we could, help protect her until this guy realized that, hey, you're not getting her back. We'll find somebody else. But, we didn't know that until it was too late.
Oh, and I'm just curious, Stefan, how old of a woman would you say she was when this happened?
I would say that she had to be mid to late 30s.
Best
And
years ever.
My 20s. So yeah, that's about right. And she was a very nice person. We all knew her and liked her, and she was, somebody at all the gatherings. She was a great dancer, just a nice person, just an all-around nice person. And like I said, she would have that daughter, and this guy was just crazy. And I'd love to know. I've been dying to figure out if there's a way where I can go back in time and find out what happened to his first wife, because I'm wondering if it's something like what Joe just talked about, where that woman just disappeared or something happened to her, and they just never put it together, the police. And then he does the same thing to his wife. And but like I said, yeah, he put himself out of our misery. He killed himself, and that's about the best thing he could have done.
Wow. And how many years do you think they were married?
Oh, they weren't married long at all. I don't even think it was a year. They were not married long at all.
Wow.
Not at all.
Wow.
And like I said, like when Joe, I don't know if it was, no, I think it was you. You were talking about pure evil. When I would see this guy's face, the emotions that I saw behind his eyes, I mean, it was nothing nice. You could tell he was narcissistic, extremely controlling. You could just tell. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking to myself, as she introducing me to her new husband, I'm like, do you really know this guy? Because what I'm looking at, this guy is going to be very abusive. He's going to be mentally and physically abusive. I'm looking at his face. I can just tell that. I don't know. I guess maybe he caught her when she was vulnerable and said all the right things and did all the right things, and why it just never clicked. I don't know if anybody, sometimes witnesses are so glad to marry you off, they won't tell you the truth, as was said before. But I could just tell this guy was nothing but trouble. But yeah, no, they weren't a year.
Well, you can look in somebody's eyes. They say the eyes are a window to a person's soul. That's one area. And then when you're looking right at them face to face, you can feel the vibes. You can feel their energy. If it's a good energy or if it's evil. Yeah, you really can. You really, really can. Mm-hmm. Wow. Oh, Stefan, that breaks your heart. Oh my gosh. But honey, we really appreciate you sharing this. And people need to know this. See, Watchtower is all about image. Oh, God forbid, don't let that get out, because we're the happiest people in the world. No, you're not. No, you're not. And you need to be very, very careful. Really, like I said, what you're going to do for your career as a woman, who you're going to marry if you're getting married, and if you're going to have kids. Those are the three biggest ones. But marriage is huge, huge. And please don't settle. I don't care if you're a male or female. Please do not settle, okay? Because there's nothing worse than being married in an absolutely miserable relationship or marriage, and you feel absolutely trapped, and there's no way you can get out. No way.
Better single and lonely
Yeah.
than married
And
and
miserable.
miserable.
Right. Right. And it's not allowed in Watchtower to be able to date for very long, and it's certainly not allowed to live with somebody without being married. So, you need to really give yourself the time to really know that person very well.
So the sisters, if they don't have a way to have a job and money of their own, then they're gullible to fall for anybody that's a witness
That's right.
brother.
That's exactly right,
Because
Pixie.
they don't have mad money to get out of the marriage.
That's right. They're set up for failure right there. That's why I always say you need to be able to develop your own person, get your education, have your own career, okay? Because just because you get married doesn't mean it's going to last. You have to have something to fall back on. And if you don't have that safety net, oh my God, you are screwed. You are screwed. Your life is really.
Can I make a
set
point?
up. Yes, go ahead.
Hey guys, it's
Go ahead.
Eric. I was just going to say that I came up with at least 3 reasons why, and I'm not saying all, but for the most part, why Jehovah's Witnesses don't make good marriage mates. The first one I'm going to steal from GG for DB, and it's because they put Jehovah first, and he calls it spiritual adultery, and I agree with him. It's like, because they're also assuming what Jehovah or God or Jesus really want in the first place, which is arrogant, and based on men's standards, which is idiotic. But it definitely creates a problem because Jesus is our mediator, and to not love your spouse and to put it's I don't know. Anyways, you may or may not agree, but the other one is that Jehovah's Witnesses typically do not have much self-growth.
No, they
I
don't.
should admit that for myself. I did not have much self-growth until I started challenging the organization and myself. And then the self-growth happened. And then it flooded in when the self-growth, when I became an apostate and completely ignored their counsel or their direction. And then the other reason why Jehovah's Witnesses the third reason why they make bad spouses for the most part is these days, it's changed now, because it used to just be adultery and death. But now you can divorce your mate if they get disfellowshipped. And that is conditional love. And that is a real, maybe that is in tune with putting Jehovah first, but that's a real shitty way to deal with your mate. Oh, hey, you're going through a hard time. Peace. Is that what the Bible says, or is that what we say when we do our vows, for better or worse? I mean, for those reasons, I think. And yes, this can apply to any religion, but for those reasons, I don't think that Jehovah's Witnesses make the best marriage mates. And it also depends on the person and how serious they take their so-called faith. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eric. But I have a question there. So you just said that if you have a married couple and one of the spouses is disfellowshipped, then it gives the other party in the marriage the right to get a divorce. You're saying even if it's not adultery? Am I understanding you right on that?
Yeah, yep. It happened to Desiree and I. When she got the disfellowship before myself, I had people coming up to me, so you're going to leave your wife? I'm like, for what? They're like, well, she's disfellowship. And I'm like, yeah. Like, she didn't commit adultery. You're like, dude, I'm not supposed to know. I'm like, it doesn't, you're trying anyway. I don't know. That was back in 2012.
But, I never heard that.
No, I haven't either.
Eric, I never heard that.
Yeah, I haven't either. Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard that. I mean, you could be right.
You never heard that?
God,
No.
Yeah, no,
I never heard that.
Yeah.
Also, it's happening more and more. I've seen things on Reddit, and I know you can't take past that and take it all to the bank, but I'm hearing stories of people straight up leaving their mates because they got disfellowship, or they didn't want to be, or they're an apostate, right? That's another reason too. And even the apostate,
Apocryphally,
that's still not
there is.
scriptural ground according to the Jehovah's Witness standard. I mean, it isn't, you know?
Well, their doctrine changes every week,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
Oh,
like
it's
Joe,
constantly.
These are man-made rules.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Like Joe told us, it just depends on your elders.
Hmm.
You could have the same scenario in two different congregations, and one brother will keep his being an elder, and the other brother will be disfellowship. I mean, it's crazy. There's no
Consistency.
consistency, no standards.
Uh-huh.
No
It just
consistency.
depends on the elders that you get,
Yeah.
and so much of this is
Yeah,
political.
like entertainment. I've had some people say, "Oh, I couldn't watch Star Wars," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, there was an elder in my congregation that took all of us young guys, and we went dressed up in costumes when Star Wars was re-released in the '90s, and we were on the news. And that brother that was an elder, he was Obi-Wan Kenobi waving his lightsaber, and it was on the news. And he said that if he wasn't sorry, he would have had to step down, but he repented.
Yeah.
All for like,
Yeah.
dressing up for a movie and being on the news. Who cares? It was all innocent. But hey, that's their control thing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the elders have a tendency to get into everybody's business. When I say everybody, I'm talking about married couples, business, even if you're single, but we're talking about married life, into people's married life business, and they need to stay out of it. They need to really just stay out of it.
I don't know why anyone would want to be an elder. Go ahead, brother.
You didn't get to finish, so Rich.
Oh, did I cut him off?
Hey, it's me and Mark. I called earlier. I come from Texas. I just want to say, yeah, it's really true. And I don't take back what I think Gilbert was telling me earlier, the counsel about being on a date. But you're absolutely right. You never get to know somebody when you're a witness. And for me and myself, before I'm going to marry somebody or give my life to somebody, I need to see what this person is or like when they're genuinely pissed off or put under a lot of stress. And you don't have that option when you're in the Watchtower. It's just 5-6 months dating or courting, and then you're off to the marrying. It's really not a good thing for you.
Right. Very good point. And you're Mark. And Mark, I was going to say one thing that was a real blessing for you was, you did not get married. Just like me. You did not get married in the organization. So, you're older now, but it gives you an opportunity to get to know who you are. Can you imagine how complicated your life would have been, and probably a lot of regrets, it sounds like it, had you married somebody who was a JW at that time when you were younger? I'm just saying.
Goodness. More than likely.
Yep. I mean, the sisters I hung out with, we grew up in the 70s. Okay. 75, I was 20. So I'm 70 now. So, we're talking about that era, and there's only a couple of them that are still married. Are they happily married? In my opinion, they are not happily married. Yeah, they might be married, I'd have to do the math, right? Over 50 years. So what? What's the quality of life of their marriage? That's the point. And Jolene, she had 3 kids. Whoop-de-doo. Her husband was a ministerial servant and then ended up being an elder. Okay, whoop-de-doo. And you know what? None of their kids ever got baptized. They were very smart. Never got baptized. So they could see something the parents couldn't. But the point I'm trying to make is just because the parents have been married over 50 years does not mean they're happily married.
That's it.
And their daughter just got married and showed it on, what was it? On, what's that one? I don't know what it is. I can't think of it. Anyway, and I saw a picture of Jolene and her husband. She looks miserable. I'm just being totally honest. She doesn't look happy. I think she's thinking, oh my God, my daughter just got married. The daughter was living with a guy for many, many years. And, Jolene got married at 17 and, gave up her whole life just to get married to her fiance or husband who was 7 years older. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, she got married so young. And she's been married all these years, and she had 3 kids, and she's probably was looking at her firstborn daughter who was getting married that day thinking, wow, you've lived more of your life than I have, right? You know, you've enjoyed your life. You know, you never had any children. You never got married young. You know, you've been able to travel. You know, you've really enjoyed your life. And then she probably was comparing it to her life. Oh my God, I only got married at 17 and wow. You know, that's what I was reading on her face. That's what I was reading on her face. You know, my mom used to have this expression, you make your bed, you lie in it. Okay. So the choices you make in life, you gotta live up to the consequences. You get married young, you know, you gotta live with it. You get married to a JW without knowing who they are or whatever, even if it's not a JW, you better make sure you know that person very, very well. And you better be sure that you sit down and communicate about everything. Okay. Family, finances, sex, what else, Rich? I don't know, travel, spiritual stuff, whatever. You put everything on the table and you talk all that before you get married. Go ahead, please.
Honestly, I could have never gotten married still being in the organization or still being a Jehovah's Witness. Looking back, I would have never have honestly been happy. I would have never even known who I was married to or what I was married to. I would have never been able to happily get married in the Jehovah's Witness. Is one of the other big reasons why I'm so glad to be out.
Yeah. Well, because you didn't even get an opportunity to get to know who you are first.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I don't care if you're a male or female. You have to know who you are first and what type of person you are and what you're looking for in life to have fulfillment and happiness. You know, you can't get married. The expression is you can't get married looking for, you know, I'm a female. You can't get married looking for a man to be your island, if you've ever heard that expression. Same thing is true with men. You can't get married to a woman looking for her to be your island, to be everything to fulfill you. That's not how life is. You have to be very fulfilled and happy with who you are first and accomplish things in life and set goals for yourself and have self-confidence and self-esteem. Then you have something really worthwhile to contribute to the marriage rather than just an empty bucket. Like, okay, I'm 19. I'm looking, you know, for a marriage mate in the Kingdom Hall. Okay, let's hook up and get married.
Yeah.
That's empty. You're very shallow. The marriage will not work, and they don't.
You really have to spend time. You know, you have to spend time really getting into your wife's personality, and you have to go through hard times together.
Yeah.
I know in my situation, it was I was going to college. I was working full time, trying to get as much overtime as I could. I bought an old beat up house and was always fixing this and repairing that. I hardly had a conversation with her except for, can you hold this side of the ladder up and can you get my paintbrush or whatever?
Or let's go back to the meeting, right?
Yeah, well, you have to go to the meetings.
I get to the meeting.
You know?
Right.
I hardly knew her.
Yeah.
I was married 18 years, my first wife. And I didn't even know her.
Yeah.
I was just so busy getting an education, working the overtime, fixing the old house, and going to quick bills and all the
meetings.
Yeah, and go out and service on Saturday.
There is no time.
You know,
there is no time.
I didn't even know her.
Well, and then the kids come along, then it's even more complicated.
Yeah, I didn't even spend time with the kids either.
Right. And I'll tell you something, you know, I've spoken to friends that have been married for like 34 years, they get divorced. And, you know, she said, Connie, let me tell you, when a woman gets married, she said this, you give up your identity to get married, especially if you get married young. I'm talking about young, but you give up your identity, right? You give up your identity as a woman to get married. And then if kids come along, because, you know, she got married in her 20s. If kids come along, she says, everything's on hold. Everything is for your husband. Everything's for your kids. Okay. And your interests and everything else is pushed to the side. Now, I knew that when I was a teenager. That's why I never got married. I never did. I didn't get married till I was 68 because I was never going to settle. Never. Why? I was happy. I was happy being single. Marriage isn't for everybody. Marriage is not for everybody. And you need to know that. And you don't want to be getting laid and then creating babies. And then you got all these, you know, child support payments. Okay. So wear a glove. Hey, I'm talking real here.
Something you
Talking
said
real.
earlier. You
Talking
touched on
real.
Constance. You said you never ever really do get to know yourself or know who you are until you leave the Watchtower. I mean, that is so true. Words of wisdom. That's something I could talk to you about for hours, but that is so
Right.
true.
It's very true. It's very true.
Mhm.
It's very true. Don't be getting married because you're looking for a paycheck. Don't get married because you're looking for sex. Don't get married for, whatever. Okay. Because that's very superficial. That's very, very superficial. And that marriage is not going to last. And like Rich and I've always said, and it's so very true, there are givers in this world and there are takers. And the worst situation you can have is be married to someone, you're a giver and they're a taker. They will just suck the life out of your bank account. They'll suck the life out of you. They'll suck the life out of your whole life because you're giving, and they're taking. And Rich and I, we talked about this. I said, Rich, let me tell you something. Put everything, and I mean everything, on the table. Okay. And I mean everything, because I don't deal very well with any surprises. So you just tell me who you are. I'm going to ask you some questions, and we talk for hours and hours and hours, but you be honest. No trickery, no deceit, no, what was it? The thing you always say about omission?
Lies of omission.
Lies of omission, where you don't, well, if you didn't ask me, I didn't answer. No, you put it on the table because I want to hear it. Okay. And because we just want to enhance each other's lives. We want to be in love. We want to enjoy the remaining years we have. We don't want to destroy each other. Rich has gone through 2 marriages before me. Okay. So that's what I just want to say. Be very careful. There are givers and there are takers. Okay. Anybody else? Because I think we need to probably wrap it up, but this is a great conversation.
Y'all got a great point with that. They're givers, takers.
Yes. Well, thank you, honey. We appreciate you chiming in.
Yeah.
And with marriage, and another reason some of them marry because they want to fit in with their peers, want to do what their peers are doing, follow them.
Oh yeah. Well, it's different. There's a single club. There's a single club and there's a married club. I found that out when I got married.
Yeah.
It's very different. You didn't know. I didn't know that, but there is. Yeah. Fitting in. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. Dallas, I get that. Well, I think what we're going to do is probably continue this conversation in 2 weeks, because there's a lot that I didn't even get to touch, but that's okay. That's okay. And we really love everybody. We love everyone's comments. And, we're just real people. We're just talking the truth about marriage, and we want the very best for everybody. So thank you, everyone, for chiming in tonight. And thank you, Joe, as well.
Yeah. And just kind of close with this. If you like what we're talking about, tell somebody, especially if you're a PMO and you're still in and you have access to young witness couples or witnesses that are dating. I just kind of pass on, if you believe what we're saying to be true, pass it on to some of these young people.
Yeah, send the video to them.
And the other thing I would say is, if you're a PMO, get out of there. Just get out. You might have to pay a price for it, but get out.
Life is short, right?
Yeah, life is
It's
short.
not a dress rehearsal. You wanna enjoy your life, and
No reset buttons.
there's no reset buttons. And I've been out 42 years. You've been out how long, Rich?
It's 1990.
Yeah, I mean, we've been very happy. Rich and I wish we had met each other years ago.
Yeah, in high
But
school.
We met each other on 6 screens. I was from California. Rich was from Massachusetts. You can tell from his accent. So, so anyway, well, we love everyone, and we want to thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, thank you for your program. Thank you for having Joe. And don't waste your time or your life in that cult that
Dennis.
that is operated by Satan the devil.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Dallas.
Thank you, Dallas.
And for everybody that called in tonight, thank you. And I want to thank Rick for allowing us to have this program. Good night, everybody, and God bless.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dick and Constance. Good program. I mean, really get a lot of people coming in tonight as it gets colder. More and more people are coming into the 6 screens. And let's face it, this is where ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come to talk every Saturday night and every other Sunday right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you, honey. Thank you,
got it.
love.
All right. Well, anyway, stay with us. We've got more programming coming up here. We're going to now go to, well, let's see. We're going to go to JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about. But boy, do we have some good things to talk about tonight. You know, in fact, they're really pushing now. I'm just going to remove. Okay. Yeah, in fact, the Watchtower, as of late, is really pushing baptisms like you've never seen. They want young ones. They want anyone to get baptized, even if they're not going out in service regularly, even if they haven't been commenting in the meeting for 2 years. They are wanting people to become baptized. Why? Well, we get that story coming up and many, many more right here on JW World News. That's coming up. Don't leave this channel. Stay on YouTube, stay on Facebook, and we'll be in about a minute in our JW World News program. Thank you very much for coming in here tonight and spending some time with Dick and Constance. So I'll end the program right here and go over to the news.